believe we're about at 6 o'clock. Good evening. The chair would like to call to order the regular meeting of the City of Placerville Planning Commission, August 21st. If you'll please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we have the roll call, please?
Vice Chair Keeney.
Present.
Member List.
Present.
Chair Friend.
Here.
Member Zuba.
Present.
Member Saragosa.
Here. We have a quorum. Thank you for everyone for attending. Before we get into the formal agenda, I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out to attend. This is wonderful. Item 1, consent calendar. Do I have a motion for adoption of the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Item 2, not applicable. Item 3, items of interest to the public. Public comment for items not on the agenda. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the commission on something that's not on our agenda for this evening, you have the opportunity now to approach the podium. It will give you 3 minutes to express your idea, concept, concern. There may be a copy in the back of the room. I'm not sure. Andrew, are there any more copies of the agenda? Are they in the back? Somebody might share. It looks like a very pleasant, friendly audience this evening. I'll try to keep it that way. All right. Anyone wishing to address the commission on an item not on the agenda? Great. Pull the microphone down.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Chapman. I live on Clay Street, and I guess I just wanted to say we're all anxiously awaiting the results of the draft EIR for the Clay Street Bridge and realignment project, and have heard hints of lots of maybe different changes, different plans, but I hope the Planning Commission will be engaged in that. And one of the big key points of that is the need for more study of the elements in that project, in that intersection area around the Druid Monument, including, the bridge and the whole intersection, being contributing to a potential significant historic district. And our understanding is that there is more study being done on the cultural resources evaluation. Hopefully that is happening, but just hoping that the Planning Commission will be engaged in that.
Thank you for your comment. Not to suggest that you wait for the entire meeting to conclude, but item 5.2 on the agenda, reports, matters from staff, they may address that. And in addition to the planning director here, we also have the city manager, so there may be some information. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Anyone else wish to bring a matter to the commission this evening? Seeing none, we'll close that item on the agenda and we'll move forward to public hearings. Item 4.1, the Competition Canine Training Center. This is a conditional use permit, CUP 18-02. Before I ask for the staff report, what I would like to see, we're going to try something just a little bit different this evening. I'd like to see, by a show of hands, those folks who have already submitted a letter of support. Okay, thank you very much. Now, the chair is not going to attempt to dissuade anyone from expressing their support at the podium when we get to the public comment portion of this. However, in order to expedite our ability to review and come to a decision on this, we might ask you to consider possibly, since you're already a matter of record having submitted a letter, that you not necessarily come to the podium. We're not restricting anyone. Just give that some thought, because we have a lot of folks here and we have a lot of information to cover. And I'll leave that up to your discretion. So, Mr. Painter, do you have the agenda item this evening?
I do. Thank you. Yes, item 4.1 is a request for a conditional use permit. And the request is made by Ann McQuillan. And her intent is to convert 2 existing commercial buildings a 6,000 square foot warehouse building and an approximately 3,500 square foot of an existing 5,000 square foot retail office building into a canine training facility. And the project location size is approximately 1.4 acres. Site address is 7533 Green Valley Road here in Placerville, located at the northwest corner of the intersection of Green Valley Road and Debbie Lane. Now, should the commission determine to approve the conditional use permit tonight, staff requests that there is an existing conditional use permit on this location. It is CUP 82-07. It was authorized back in 1982 for outdoor bulk storage of plumbing supplies. And staff requests that that be declared null and void should action be taken to approve tonight's CUP 18-02, the animal training facility. The site is zone commercial. There are going to be requested two phases to this facility. Phase one would involve conversion of the warehouse building into where an open area for the training of canines. There will be rubber floor matting added to the floor of that facility, a movable indoor fence installed, which will allow for a flexible space for agility and dog sport training activities. Outside the warehouse and within the fenced former outdoor storage area, there will be obedience training, agility, and other such training of dogs. A portion of the warehouse would be used for retail sales. Phase two would occur within the existing commercial retail building, and that involves an interior space of approximately 3,500 square feet, where there will be additional floor matting placed down for the purpose of training activities. And the existing real estate business in that structure will remain. These two buildings date back to the early 1980s. They were constructed separately. The retail office building in 1980 and the warehouse building in 82 after receiving site plan review and a conditional use permit for that earlier mentioned outdoor storage of plumbing supplies. Attachment B of staff's report is the applicant's submittal package, which provides a very detailed business operations summary of the request tonight for the canine training facility. In that package, training classes are described as having as many as 15 students at a time and their handlers. 2 classes maximum could operate at one time during facility operations. Most classes are estimated to have between 8 to 10 students as well as their handlers. Each class would have 1 trainer and 2 assistants. During agility classes, other classes will have 1 trainer and 1 assistant. Business hours were noted in that package. The submittal package provided as 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. It is well to note here that the use tonight does not propose, there is no overnight accommodation of dogs, so it is not a kennel use. It's strictly a daytime operation related to the training of canine dogs. Surrounding the project are residential uses to the west and north, and to the south and east are commercial uses. Vehicle access to the site is from a driveway on Green Valley Road at the northeastern portion of the site. A second gated driveway access exists off Debbie Lane. 29 parking spaces would be required for the proposed use. For the the proposed training facility, as well as the existing real estate office on the site. The existing parking area, as I described, along between Green Valley Road and the retail office building, does have some faded parking spaces, and those appear to be striped for a total of 23. As determined by staff, 29 would be required for this use, as well as for the existing real estate operation. So there appears to be adequate area within the compound of approximately 1.46 acres to accommodate the 6 additional stalls necessary to meet our parking needs and requirements of city code. Daily traffic generation is estimated for this use was not quantified. However, based on the applicant's business operations, the proposed use would be similar to the traffic generated from an office, retail sale, or retail services uses that currently exist within the project vicinity. There is mature landscaping along the frontage along Green Valley Road as well as Debbie Lane. Staff noted that there are a combination of Chinese pistache, cypress trees, manzanita, as well as other shrubs and ground cover species. This request does allow the Planning Commission to consider existing site conditions for conformance with city code. And there are two areas of the commission that staff would suggest the commission consider tonight, one of which involves an agreement to maintain landscaping, and the second would be to require the enhancement of the existing trash enclosure. If you're familiar with the site, and I believe it's on page 1 or 2 of staff's report, there is a picture of that area of the compound showing the existing enclosure. It consists of cyclone fencing and some slats. As the commission can attest, that is clearly not the standard today. So staff is suggesting the commission condition the project accordingly to enhance that feature of the site using materials that are complementary, if not consistent with the materials on the site, to adequately screen the material inside the enclosure. City records do not reflect that a landscape maintenance agreement was part of the 1982 approval, and so that is another condition that staff is bringing forward for the commission to consider tonight. Now, this request does not involve any business signage. Staff did discuss with the applicant about a concept that will likely come forward regarding a master sign plan for this building, as well as the 2 additional buildings to the north. When that does come forward, that request will most likely come before the commission for their review and approval. So at this time, there is no business signage provided. Staff evaluated the request this evening for its consistency with the general plan. As I mentioned earlier, the project site is zoned commercial. And this designation provides for retail sales and services and other commercial activities that serve the residents of the community. As the applicant's narrative describes, and my staff report also reiterates, that this request would provide for a year-round commercial training facility for dogs. It would offer a variety of classes to serve the needs of the community as well as city residents. The training center would be an infill use of this building, utilizing an existing commercial space that has been vacant for quite a few years. This use of this space is likely to create a positive impact on the city, where parking and access meet city code regulations. Therefore, the project is consistent with General Plan Goal C and Policies 4 and 9 of the land use element. The project site, again, is zoned commercial, and under our code, a canine training facility is not described exactly in city code, but it does share characteristics of what the city calls an animal clinic in city code under section 10.5.15. Such a use would require and is required of a conditional use permit under the commercial zone, and once again, that is the request tonight. When evaluating a conditional use permit, the commission is required to make 3 findings. A, that the proposed use and its operating characteristics are deemed essential or desirable to the public, convenience, or welfare. That the proposed use and its operating characteristics are in harmony with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. And C, the proposed use is not detrimental to surrounding property. One of the items that came before you prior to the meeting is an email from Mr. Brzezinski of the Animal Control Services of El Dorado County. And for some reason, I don't have that document in front of me. Thank you. I do now. Mr. Brzezinski does and has reviewed the application submittal by Ms. McQuillan, and he does conclude in his brief summary to us in his email that the use as proposed is considered a commercial animal establishment, and under El Dorado County Code, and this section the city has adopted as its own by reference, does require a license through that county entity. So one of the conditions that staff recommends tonight would be that the applicant tonight must obtain and maintain a license under this definition of an animal, commercial animal establishment. And Mr. Brzezinski goes further on to say that, quote, it would be appropriate for the applicant to require all clients to have a current rabies vaccine and a current dog license appropriate to the jurisdiction that they reside in, as both are required by California law and county ordinance. Thanks. Appreciate that. We wanted to make sure that the applicant got a copy of that email from Mr. Brzezinski. Okay. Under staff's review for environmental concerns, staff has reviewed this project, and it is categorically exempt as an infill development project under Section 15332 of the California Environmental Quality Act. Staff received a lot of public comment regarding this request, as you can tell by the audience this evening. They vary in comments from those in support as well as those who are have concerns about the operations of this facility. Overall, staff recommends conditional approval of the project, since the proposal A, as evidenced by letters from the public, provides a desirable service use for the public. B, as conditioned, the proposed use is compatible with existing commercial and real estate use on site, and the proposed facility will not negatively impact the surrounding commercial uses or residential uses in the vicinity. And C, the training facility is appropriately located in a commercial area and is consistent with the policies of the Commercial General Plan designation. To conclude, staff suggests the Commission take the following action: make the findings under Roman numerals 1 and 2 on pages 5 and 6 of staff's report. Conditionally approve the request, which is 7533 Green Valley Road, CUP 18-02, the Competition Canine Training Center, subject to the conditions of approval provided as Attachment E, or as amended and suggested earlier in my oratory here regarding some comments received by the Animal Control Services of El Dorado County. As well as the fourth item staff would like a action on would be to if CUP 18-02 is approved, then to declare CUP 82-7 null and void. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my staff report.
Thank you, Andrew. As always, brief, concise, to the point.
I have to interject. We did, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this before. I'm sorry, Chair. We did receive some additional information for this item.
Oh, correct.
We received additional comments that came to us after the comment closing period, and these were 5 individuals. You should have 5 comments received from folks. We received from the applicant a document. You should each have one of these. It is titled Appraiser Opinion Regarding the Proposed Dog Training Center. I mentioned earlier Mr. Brzezinski's email. And the other item is for item 4.2 tonight. So, yes, that now concludes my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions of staff by commissioners?
I just want to clarify that regarding Mr. Brzezinski's email about the county commercial animal established permit, we can just add that tonight as condition 8 as the...
You absolutely may, sure.
Okay. We don't have to do any further review or notice, just add that as an 8.
No, you might want to wordsmith it the way you want to see it read. But
I think we'll just, I think you said incorporate this by reference. I would be in favor of doing that. Thank you.
Commissioner Zuba?
Referring again to the letter,
by Mr. Brzezinski, there's a license required by the city of Placerville to operate this specific type of business. That's correct? That's, as I understand it from this letter. From this letter, should the applicant move forward with taking over these buildings, converting them as appropriate under the building code, then before we would allow occupancy, we would, number one, require a permit from the city to go through that process. Number two, they would need, should the recommended condition go forward regarding animal control, then one of the checklist items that they would need to obtain and provide evidence to the city that such a license was issued. And a business license would be required to operate also within the city limits of Placerville. So my question to staff then is, what is the effect of adding this licensure as a condition of the permit? The effect would be to require the applicant to provide evidence that these have been obtained before we would allow physical occupancy of the site and use. Thanks.
If I may, there may be other questions of staff, but I'd like to continue on this because the second part of this letter, what he's requesting, it would be appropriate for the applicant to require all clients to have a current rabies vaccine and a current dog license appropriate to the jurisdiction that they reside in, as both are required by California law. I'm wondering if we have the authority to require that business practice, because that's very different than the first item, which is a straightforward, and I'm not in opposition to that, but I'm wondering how we would require that and enforce it, because that's a business practice that they're going to have to engage in, as opposed to the simply obtaining the commercial animal establishment permit. Very different.
Well, one of the purview of your review tonight is to consider the welfare of the public. And I think you might make an argument that requiring that at the time by the applicant to keep such records would be a way to assist in the welfare of the community.
Okay, I mean, I can see that. Okay, but I'll have to mull it over a bit. Other questions of staff by commissioners? I have just a couple of other quick questions, if I may. As you mentioned in the report, Andrew, you indicated that there's no standard for this type of facility from the perspective of traffic, I believe.
Correct.
I was kind of contemplating what type of business might be similar to this, and for whatever reason, the concept of a karate studio kind of popped into my mind. Okay, and that's, I don't know. It just seemed a karate, and because there's classes.
Is it the agility and acrobatics that might enter?
All these things were getting me very excited. And I want to rush and register my dog immediately. But so I was saying, well, a karate studio, they may have multiple classes, and so that's kind of the traffic thing. So if we were going to come up with a standard, would that necessarily be an inappropriate example to use? Because it seems like it would be similar.
It sounds to me like it would be similar. Yeah, you would have people who would be leading the charges.
Yeah.
You'd have, of course, clientele who were in the audience. In this case, you would have canines as well as humans, as opposed to the karate where you may only have the human aspect of it. But I get your point. Yes, that would be an appropriate comparison.
So given that, you may not be able to answer this on short notice, but if you have the opportunity while we're proceeding with the rest of the discussion, if you could figure out what that might be and then give some contemplation as to whether or not how applicable it is, if you can. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you have the time, I don't know what resources you have available to yourself while you're sitting there. Pierre's he's gonna kibosh me.
No, I'm just going to try and see if I can allay some of your concerns. Basically, I would agree with you that a karate studio, jiu-jitsu studio, or the like would be very, very similar in the traffic generation that you would see within canine obedience school. So since those uses would be permitted by right, In other words, we wouldn't have an environmental analysis or anything before you. I don't think traffic is an issue, and I think when staff discussed this, we didn't see any kind of substantial change in the traffic that would already be permitted within those existing buildings and the commercial uses that have existed. So the conditional use permit is before you mainly because of the animal aspect of this use. Any kind of a kennel or a veterinary a dog obedience school that's before you, that is what's triggering the use permit, because we want to ensure the conditions of approval that are placed on this use will render this use compatible with the surrounding land uses. So traffic was just not considered an issue at all.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. I just picked up on it, hadn't been quantified. And then the last question I want to ask, with regards to CUP 82-07, even though that hasn't been specifically agendized for action tonight, we would still have the authority to take that action as part, if we were to grant approval for the current request. That's not an issue that it wasn't.
It is not an issue.
Okay, all right, great. I have no additional questions. If there are no other questions from commissioners, then for the benefit of the audience, this is a public hearing that we're going to open. And the way we run the public hearing is applicants or the appellants are allowed time to present the testimony at the beginning of the public hearing. So we'll obviously ask the applicant to come forward, and if needed, an opportunity to present any rebuttal after we've heard all of the presentation from everyone. All of the speakers may be limited in the length of time speaking at the discretion of the chair. Now, my general approach is to not limit anyone. I made a request to all of you earlier. It's up to you what you want to do with that. And do we have a presentation with actual animals? I thought we were going to have a presentation.
I had gotten wind that
demonstration of
was
some
going to
kind.
happen. I don't know if the applicant is.
Okay, all right. Well, then I'm going to go ahead and invite the applicant and other agent to come and present. If you would come to the podium, and welcome.
I'm recuperating from bilateral knee surgery, so getting up and down is a bit hard. I'm Ann McQuillan. I own Competition Canine. We have been in business since 1976. We have functioned in multiple states. And we are a performance sports training organization. And that's a little bit different than the traditional obedience school. While we do have some obedience components, the bulk of what we do is performance sports. And I would like to correct one thing that Andrew said. There will be storage of agility equipment outside in the yard. The training occurs in the building, which I think is a significant difference. I'm infinitely aware of this building. I own Team Commercial. We are the real estate office in the other half of the building. We have been there for 12 years, and for the last 8 years, since Kensko moved out, we've been dealing with all sorts of issues that are associated with a vacant building. We've had everything from intrusion to theft. The fence to the Kensko warehouse gets cut on a regular basis. We have homeless camps. We've had the police 14 times so far this year. That doesn't count the number of times that we've asked individuals to move along. So the vacant building is a problem for the community, for the businesses, for the people behind it. I'd like to briefly just say Placerville Police Department has been amazing in supporting us in trying to deal with some of these issues. The two phases. Phase one is the one we're anxious to get off the ground because rains are coming. There is no facility large enough to teach agility or tribal or any of the other big space sports in our region. The last one in Sacramento closed because a cannabis company bought out the building and canceled their lease. So we're looking to bring a group of individuals from throughout the region, not just people who live in Placerville and live in El Dorado County, and there are a lot of them. Many of them are here tonight. But people who live in Sacramento that are looking for a place to train, And I know that a lot of us sitting in this room routinely go down the hill to spend money. We go down to train, we buy dinner, we buy gas, sometimes we stay over. Those are tax dollars that Placerville isn't capturing, and we'd like to give you an opportunity to capture some of that. Additionally, the warehouse is, other than cleaning it up and working on some of the maintenance issues, because it's had very little maintenance over the last couple of years. We're not going to be doing a lot to it because what we need is a big open space, and what a warehouse is a big open space. The building itself is insulated. We will be adding more insulation. We will be working with the City of Placerville Building Department to add heating and cooling, and to look at how we might modify this facade so it isn't an ugly tin box anymore. Right now, it's an ugly tin box. We have had a lot of positive input from the dog community, and we've also had some positive input from some of the neighbors. Yesterday, I got a call from 2 of the neighbors asking if we go forward, would we be willing to host National Night Out next year, which we think is a great idea. What this facility does is it brings people into Placerville. It gives our dog enthusiasts a place to train dog sports, and it does a couple of other things. For the first time in a very long time, the 4-H kids who are in the dog programs will have a permanent home. I started the agility program for 4-H in 1992 here in El Dorado County, and it has grown and it has changed, but today our kids train outside. When it starts to rain, they train in the rain. I'd like to give them a nice, warm, safe place to train at no charge. We'll also be doing some programs. We're affiliated with a group called Pets for Vets, and what we do is we work with veterans to help them integrate and train dogs, which we know helps them integrate into society. The bulk of the dogs that we have will be coming to us to do dog sports, and dog sport dogs are unique in that by the time they start doing dog sports, they've already got basic obedience. The reason we have a couple of dogs here tonight is that I wanted you to get a feel for what a sport dog looks like. That's what they look like. They're not lunging, they're not barking, they're not uncontrolled. They know to lay quietly until it's their time to play. And that's who our clients are. Will we have some babies that are just starting out in agility? Yes. But we're not going to see tons of dogs barking. We don't board. We will not bring dogs in for one individual to train while another dog sits in a crate and fusses. Dogs will be there with their handlers, learning to play. Additionally, and there's some of my students in this class, in this area, we don't tolerate barking dogs. I don't know about you. I don't like barking dogs. It drives me nuts. It's impossible to teach an animal and an owner anything with a dog barking nearby, especially if it's their dog. So the first thing that happens in a class is we talk about how you deal with it. If we need to stop the class and deal with a dog who's maybe a little overstimulated, we have ways of doing that. I've been doing this for 40 plus years. Barking dogs, will you hear them occasionally? Yes, dogs bark. But do we tolerate nuisance barking? Absolutely not. Additionally, the potty area that is outside will be policed. One of the things I can tell you about sport dog people is we pick up our poop, bottom line. We know that we routinely work in high schools and colleges and parks and arenas where they don't want any leftovers. And so we have learned from day one to make sure that we clean up after our dogs. The potty area itself will actually be enzyme treated on a weekly basis, more often if necessary, but it's usually not. That cuts any potential for odor. That cuts any potential for anything growing there that wouldn't be friendly. And with regard to Mr. Brzezinski's letter, yes, I was aware of that. I left that out. I apologize. We require that all the dogs that come into our classes show us that they are current in vaccinations and that they are current with rabies. We do ask, when appropriate, if they are licensed in El Dorado County. We have people that come in from Sacramento that have hobby breeders licenses and that kind of thing. Their licensing is very different than ours. But first and foremost, we're concerned about vaccinations and making sure that the dogs that are in our classes are healthy, because I don't want my dogs catching anything, and I'm sure nobody else does. So it is something that we address before you actually come to class. You're providing that documentation to us. The overall concept that we came up with was totally self-serving. I want a place to train my dogs when it's pouring rain or raining worse horizontally, where I can focus on making my dog better, because most of us train in the summertime, just get the dog going really well, and now it starts to rain and the weather's miserable, or if you live in Pollock Pines, you got snow, so you're not working on equipment, and then you get to the spring when the dog shows start and you start all over again. The goal is to have a year-round location where our dogs can learn dog sports and where other trainers can train. We are talking to Hangtown Kennel Club, and I know we have some Hangtown people here tonight, about them possibly doing some classes at the facility if there is space and time, and we would certainly welcome that. But the bottom line to the whole scenario is there are a lot of people in our community that have dogs. We would like to make them safer, better, and happier. We would like the dog owners to have a resource if they don't know who to ask. We're their resource. Come ask. And above and beyond that, we want to offer our 4-H'ers and some of the other members of our community a place where they can come and train and learn to be good citizens and learn all the responsibility that comes with having an animal. We're excited about bringing this to Placerville. I know we're going to bring people into Placerville, and I know that long-term the neighbors are going to be very happy that we're there. I understand their concerns about traffic. My office is on Green Valley Road. I have to get out. I understand it. But the bottom line to the whole scenario is I think this is a reasonable use for this building that has sat vacant and deteriorating for 8 years. It's time for us to generate some income, and it's time for us to have a positive location where our dogs can come, train, and play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions of the applicant by commissioners? Commissioner Keene?
Thank you. From the letters of support, I read everything in your package. I think that this is a very well thought out, very proactive approach to your business, and I'm very confident that it'll be a great success. I do have a couple of questions regarding your application, and it kind of relates to, we did receive two dissenting letters, if you will, and so I just wanted to see if I can get my thinking straight on this before we proceed. The first one is whether or not you're going to have any training outside, because this goes back and forth. Unfortunately, in the staff report, it was mentioned that some training could take place outside. And in our package, now I can't put my hands on it, you sent a letter to, I guess, neighbors. Could you, and in that letter, to finish my thought on this, you said that there would not be any training outside. And then in I guess page 3 of your text, you mentioned that some training might take take place outside, outdoor classes for obedience, rally, and nose work. So I just would like you to take a few moments to clarify what your business plan is on this use of the outdoor space.
For the record, that's what staff was recognizing when we put in the staff report. Any outdoor use, we were referencing that same section of the narrative.
Okay,
by the applicant.
Thank you. Yeah, just please clarify what your plans are.
The bulk of the training will be inside. One of the things that we would like to do, if it is feasible, and this will come down to the number of parking spaces, as Andrew knows, I really would like to lose some of that blacktop back there. It's hot. It's deteriorating. It's in terrible shape. If it's possible for us to add some grass in the back, that would make it a softer look for the building, and it certainly would make it cooler in the summertime. Then if we were to do that, then we would like the option of possibly doing classes out there from time to time. We're not planning on floodlights. We have safety lights in the parking lot, but it's certainly not adequate to do any kind of performance sports. Performance sports are all inside. But it is feasible that at some future date, 5 years, 10 years down the road, because I have a very long lease, it is feasible we could have an obedience class out there, or we might have a practice jump set up out there. So in answer to your question, I don't want to close the door on that option, because I don't think if we even had a class out there, it's not going to be a very big class. It's not that very big space. And especially when you realize that I need, I think, 6 more parking spaces. There's 15 back there. What I'd like to do is have my parking spaces, and then ultimately, I have already started the discussions with planning about what's involved for me to get rid of some of this blacktop. So I'm sorry for the confusion. Right now, our intention is that the classes will be inside. Certainly the sports will always be inside. And quite frankly, the obedience class people are very quiet. If there's any noise to be had, happy celebrating dog on course, it's going to be an agility dog, and they'll be inside. But at some future date, would I like the option of maybe it's hot on the inside of the building and take the class outside for tonight because it's got a nice cool breeze and we have grass out there? Yeah, you bet I'd like that option. But long term, the intent is not that it's constant. That making sense? This is more about what we might do in the future, not what we intend to do immediately.
My concern is, I finally found my copy. It looks like that. It's dated August 5th this year.
Right.
And
And I'm actually truthfully referring to the building, because as coming out of the chute, everything we're going to do is going to be on the inside. Down the road, 5 years, 10 years, would we like the option of maybe having a class outside, putting a warm-up jump outside? If we're doing agility inside, we have to have a warm-up area. If we're using 100% of the arena itself, we need to put that jump has to go outside. We have matting that goes down for that. So do I want that option? Yes.
I don't think that that's a conflicting use of the area.
Yeah.
My concern more is that the document, the letter that you sent out on August 5th, says, that classes are held inside. Would you?
And that is
would
that is the intent.
Change? Would
Pardon?
that be a change I don't think it's incompatible. That would
Sure.
we need to notify the public of a change of use of the building? Andrew, can you speculate on that?
I'm not sure I'm following the question.
My
My staff report
my problem
clearly.
with it is that this document went out to, and I'm not sure who all got this letter, but it clearly
If you live on Debbie Lane or Easy Street, or you have a residential house within our 500-foot radius, you got that letter.
Okay, and it clearly states that classes are to be
And
held
that,
inside.
quite
so-
frankly, we should have indicated that at some future date, we might have classes outside. Our intent is long-term. Will we? I don't have that answer yet.
Okay.
I really
think
don't have
that's
that
the
answer yet,
best
but
we
I
can-
don't want
we
to
can,
preclude
answer it at
doing
this
that.
time.
That letter was just sent to neighbors to provide, as a cover letter, quite frankly, to get the narrative in their hands so they could see what it was we were doing. Because I had several people drop into my office and go, "Oh, dog kennel, don't want a dog kennel." And I'm like, we're not a dog kennel. And when I heard it the third time, I realized that I needed to put the narrative in the hands of the individuals that were behind us.
And I appreciate you reaching out to the people that surrounding your property. I think that was a good thing
I'd be
to do.
concerned too if it were me. I don't know that I'd want to live next door to a dog kennel. Training, don't have a problem with it. So,
Thank you. Commissioner List?
First off, I'd like to say that I hope you get your wish of lots of rain this winter, both vertical and horizontal.
don't we all?
Give me a little insight. In your narrative, you talk about there could be 2 classes at a time.
Sure.
Okay, approximately how many classes during a day, a week? Do you, your business plan must have dealt with that. What are you anticipating?
Daytime classes, as a rule, are not real successful. I'm sure the Hangtown people have tried it and it didn't work real well. We don't have the population to support daytime classes. I would anticipate that we might have 2 daytime classes a quarter, if that. The space behind you, it's a 6,000 square foot space. It is 150 feet by 60. We would then take approximately 1,000 square feet off of that for crating and chairs and stuff. We would then divide the other part into approximately 3,000 square feet using movable fences. And then in that 3,000 square feet would be where our agility trainers would work, where the big equipment would be located. And then the other class
Let's go
would
back.
be something else.
Okay, back to my question. Approximately how many classes a week are you anticipating?
I anticipate that we'll have classes Monday through Thursday. We will probably have, and that would be 2 classes a night.
Okay,
I anticipate that we probably will have something in the neighborhood of maybe 3 classes on a Saturday. That's highly unlikely, more likely 1 or 2,
Okay.
and 1 on Sunday.
okay, thank you.
That helps.
How long is a class?
Oh, yeah, how long, approximately what's the length of a class?
Approximately an hour.
Okay, thank you.
And changeover takes about 15 minutes on either side. So you figure about an hour and a half.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, the applicant? Commissioner Zuber?
Is there any aspect of the training that involves whistles or horns or anything that would make a noise beyond just a human voice or a clicker?
No.
Thank you.
Brief, concise, to the point. Commissioner Zerk?
Just a question on the fencing. Can you give us a little bit more? I know to bring it up to current code, but can you talk a little bit more about the fencing that would
The interior fencing or the exterior fencing?
exterior fencing?
Exterior?
In particular, getting to the residents that are directly behind it.
Sure. Directly behind the building, I believe it's a 6 or 8 foot concrete wall, and then it's fenced above that. On the Debbie Lane side and on the back side of the building, if you will, it is chain link fencing. We will be looking at our landscaping and getting it cleaned out for a couple of reasons. Number one, it hasn't been maintained. And I agree, we need a plan. And also because we have so much garbage back there from the homeless camps that we just need to get it cleaned out so that it's sanitary and we lose all the needles and all the other stuff that they've left us. One of the things that we have not made a decision on is whether we're just going to leave it chain link or if we will ultimately do something in the chain link to make it more opaque. More than likely, the front gate to the parking lot to the main part of the to the main building. That gate is probably going to get changed to something that is solid so that you can't see through it. Partly because we don't want dogs coming into the building, seeing a dog walking, and that's face to face, nose to nose. They start to talk. We don't want them talking because we want to keep it quiet for the neighborhood. So we're looking at changing that fence or doing something to make it opaque. The trash enclosure, which we knew had to be addressed because it's been pretty bad for a lot of years, is going to be relocated. And if we end up relocating where planning and the building owner are talking about now, it will obscure a good portion of half of that big semi gate. Right now, the entrance, one of the entrances to the back area is a 22-foot, something like that, gate so that semis could back in there when Kensco was in. So part of that will then become trash enclosure if based on where we anticipate it'll end up. The other part will end up being obscured. We want to give the building, we want it to stop looking like a warehouse in a tin box. Right now it looks like a tin box that somebody tagged and drilled holes in and all kinds of stuff. We want to do something with that facade. The challenge to my architect was, here's a tin box, make it look like something else. So the building owner is in the process. Matter of fact, hopefully it will be submitted here shortly. They're going to be reworking the 7533 building so it will look like the other two. The goal is to create a nice little strip center that raises the bar and makes everything, gets rid of all this deferred maintenance on this building. In conjunction with that, we're going to be trying to figure out how we might do the same thing on the facade for the warehouse to make it look more retail-like. So the fencing as it exists today is commercial chain link with slanted, don't climb me, barbed wire at the top. Not the most friendly, warm and fuzzy fence, and it doesn't slow the homeless people down, bottom line.
Yeah, that would be my only comment on that is I know you mentioned that they've cut through the
they cut right
fencing.
through it, yeah.
There might be a need for something more permanent then, especially if you have canines, if you're having holes cut in your
I think the
fence.
issue with them cutting through it, quite frankly, is that it's vacant. And we've had, Mike Pettibone has had a bunch of buses parked back there. He is a friend of the former owner. And they would cut in and then they'd break into his bus and then they'd camp in the bus until they got caught. And then they'd move them out and 2 months later they're back. And I get it. It's cold. It's rainy. The bus is dry. Nobody's around at night. There's not a lot of activity in that building. So I think that, I truly believe that once this building has activity on a regular basis, I think the homeless issue really cleans up. And the police department is telling me the same thing. If not, then we'll look at, what do we have to do to solve the issue? But most of the homeless people are looking to find a place for the night before we finish teaching for the day. So they're not going to be out looking at 10 o'clock at night. They already have found their hidey hole for the night. And the police department tells me that they think that most of our intrusion issues, cutting in the fence and all that stuff, they think that'll just go away as the building is occupied. And that's certainly the case on Grandpa's Pharmacy building. We had homeless issues down there. We actually had a guy get his truck stuck between the building and the wall because he was trying to get back far enough so nobody could see him. He miscalculated the fact that it's a little too narrow for the truck. So those issues have all gone away as we started construction for the 2 new businesses that are going in there. So I think it'll go away. If it doesn't, we'll address it. Simple as that.
Thank you.
A couple of well-placed Dobermans, perhaps. If we could do this in lightning round, I have a couple of questions and try to be as brief and concise as we both can to move this along. The term handler, is that somebody who's training, or is that also synonymous with an owner? Can they be both or different?
It would be both.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll get someone that will have somebody handle a dog for them because, like me, they've got knee issues. But 99% of the people, 99% of the time, when we say handler, we're talking about the dog's owner.
Okay, terrific. You say you pre-qualify your clients' students. You don't just accept anyone in there, so you don't get the totally untrained, rambunctious, easily agitated animal. So how do you? That's part of your pre-screening then?
Realize that we're performance sport people, so we don't teach basic obedience. That's not what we do. Those people, when we call them, I got Fluffy, I got a 6-month-old lab puppy, he's a maniac, help. We send them to Hangtown Kennel Club because that's what they do. Okay. So we don't teach, as a rule, we don't have those dogs. We have a questionnaire that goes out. If you're enrolling in a class, we want to know, what level of sport for that particular sport. Are you competing? If you're competing, what is your experience? So the people that are coming to us to do dog sports already have basics. So it does change the component a little bit. Not that we don't. I teach a class for obedience, for agility, because it is different. But the people that come into that class have already done in a basic obedience class.
Okay.
So-
One of the principal functions of this body tonight is to determine if we can mitigate any concerns about the project. That's what we do with a lot of our projects. That was item C in the staff report. So my questions are kind of related to that. One of the issues that came up was the issue of dog waste, and you described how you're all well skilled at collecting the dog waste, and that's all great. The issue that was raised in one of the concern letters was its storage until such time as it's disposed. And as we've just come through a number of weeks of very, very hot temperatures, can you speak to that component? Because that's
Sure.
different to me than cleaning it up and doing enzymatic treatment.
We have lots of options to us. First and foremost, the enzyme that we use really does negate. It's used in commercial kennels. They use it at the shelter.
Is that going in the storage container as well as
Yeah, it goes
on
into the storage container
took
as
it to
well.
mean it's just going on
And
the
so
top. Okay.
I pick up my poop, it's bagged and knotted and tied. Then it goes into the storage container. So it's contained within a container that is treated.
Okay.
If we find we have an issue, there are other options for us. I don't anticipate we'll have an issue. I have friends that have training centers, and even in hotter areas than this, in Vegas, the enzyme usually does the work. But if it doesn't, there actually are systems that we can buy that will handle it, that basically is a sewage system for dogs.
Okay.
But I don't anticipate it'll be a problem.
All right, the next question I had, and it goes back to one of the concerns, apparently some animals with the, that were being brought to the vet center to or from escaped, and then they run loose. And so would you consider, as part of your business practice, that all animals that are brought to your facility are either on a leash or in a cage? I hate to use the term cage, but in a dog carrier. Let's use the term dog
Great,
carrier.
it's a great.
Would that be a business practice and it would be reasonable?
Dogs are required to enter and exit the building on leash. It's just safety. It's for their own safety.
Okay.
We never know when somebody's going to go flying by on a motorcycle that's going to backfire and scare the bejeebas out of that poodle.
Is there a, do you,
That
so-
is a standard business practice. Dogs are
Okay.
either working,
Okay.
crated, or on lead. So
Okay.
they're always under control.
Okay, great. Then you know about the staff conditions that have been proposed, and you're
Yeah.
you're good with that.
I'm fine with that.
All right, great. And the last one dealt with the licensing, and going back to Mr. Brzezinski's letter, and you had no issue with the commercial animal establishment permit,
That is
but
correct.
you raised some concern about the license verification. And so
I have no problem with saying to someone who's showing me an address, a mailing address in El Dorado County, give me your license number. When does it expire? But realize that we've got people from West Sac and from Auburn and from all over. I don't know what their licensing requirements are. We can certainly, that's a blank I'll be happy to put on our registration form, but I'm not sure, short of becoming an expert in all the other areas where we might get somebody. We get people from Stockton.
So maybe a
So-
way to solve that would be to condition this, that you would work with Mr. Brzezinski in his office to help you accomplish that objective.
Absolutely, be happy to do that.
All right, terrific. I have no additional questions. If the commissioners have no questions, we're going to open it up to the public to speak. We go in the order of those that wish to speak in support of the project, and then I want to hear certainly from those that may have some concerns with the project. Now, as I asked before, and given the size of the audience, I'll make the request. You don't have to honor it. That if you've submitted a letter and don't really have anything else to add, that maybe you forego coming up, but not to dissuade anyone. So, feel free. We request that you state your name for the record, but you're not required to do so. Is there anyone that would like to speak in support of the project? And you can form a line if you like. That might be very convenient.
Chris Payne, Diamond Springs, formerly Placerville Economic Development Committee. So I have a stake in the economic viability of Placerville. Certainly, a couple of questions that came up. I just wanted to make sure I'm setting the scene. Right across the street is G&O Body Shop. If you look at Debbie Lane, there's parking going on Debbie Lane. along the frontage of this business, proposed business. So what I'm saying is at first when I was hearing it discussed, I was thinking residential, oh, it's going to be a nuisance. But essentially, you got a auto body shop with all of the accompanying peripheral things related to auto body, cars and stuff parked in the back. But along Debbie Lane, you have vegetative screening to this property, which I think is unique because there's no vegetative screening to Gino Body Shop and the businesses there. It's only right there by this property. The other part is that there's a little driveway that comes in because they used to use trucks. Trucks used to come there for the plumbing supplies. And so there's a chain link gate, a little access on Debbie Lane, which looks like it hasn't been used, obviously, for 8 years because Kensko's no longer there, and this building's been vacant for 8 years. So obviously the owner of the building, because I'm not sure who is the owner, I understand this could be a lease, but the owner of the building hasn't done a very good job of marketing the property, and so having something unique like this, which I consider this to be a unique business that we at Peak always were looking for, and here it is today in front of you. Let's see, circulation, parking. The real estate office is kind of unique in the fact that you have, at first I was wondering who they were, but I knew who they were and then now I know how this all ties together. What a unique opportunity. I mean, it's beautiful because you don't have a separate owner of another business right there adjacent, so that makes it kind of nice. I consider this to be somewhat like a veterinarian office. You know, people are coming and going. It may not be that way, but a veterinarian office is a pretty good one. I think somebody mentioned it. And I want you to remember that the old animal shelter, which was at 511 Placerville Drive, it functioned for many, many years until the county got their new facility. I mean, I'm saying this is perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Marchant. I'm a longtime resident of El Dorado County, currently a resident of Placerville for the last 5+ years. I speak tonight to share my support for Ann McQuillan's request for a conditional use permit for an indoor canine training facility here in Placerville. I've been a participant in various canine competitive sports for a number of years and have had many friends, both local and throughout the greater Sacramento area, who are ardent canine competitive sport enthusiasts. Recently, it has become more and more difficult to find a good indoor training facility. This is especially true of late, as two heavily used indoor canine training facilities, Placer Dog Training in Granite Bay and Canine Competitive Gym in Sacramento, have closed. These are facilities that I know many locals have used and that many in the greater Sacramento region have also used. It is apparent that we need an indoor local canine training facility here in Placerville. Granting Ann the requested conditional use permit will allow those many local competitive canine enthusiasts, as well as others outside of Placerville and El Dorado County, to use the facility. The proposed facility will provide a great asset to those who love to compete with their dogs and will bring much needed revenue into our local economy. Ann has also agreed to let, as she had stated earlier, to let the 4-H and also the Placerville Police Department use the facility. With these points in mind, I ask you to please vote yes for Ann's request for a conditional use permit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Teresa Manchester. I live in Pollock Pines, where, yes, we do have snow, and the dog does not train outside when the snow comes up to his belly. I'm also a member of Hangtown Kennel Club, and I have trained with Ann in barn hunt. And my dog and I compete in several other sports. As has been pointed out, once the rain starts, and particularly once the snow starts, there's nowhere to train. There's only so much you can do at home inside your house, and that does not include the kind of sports that my dog and I compete in. We have gone as far as an hour drive from Pollock Pines to get to that place in Sacramento that is now a marijuana grow place. And based on the fact that we're willing to go that far, I'm sure that there are plenty of people that are willing to come to Placerville. So it isn't just a matter of helping out Hangtown members, though we would love to have this available to us. We will also be this business would also be drawing people from outside the county, outside the area, and just to be able to have the option to train in agility. I used to live in Sonoma County. There was only one place there that was available for training agility indoors, during the winter. Up here, there's nothing yet. So I'm very much hope that you will approve. And I mean, there's so many of us that do so many different things with our dogs that it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing for us. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Christina Bowers, and I'm a resident of El Dorado Hills. I've been a resident of the county for many years now, since 1999. And I just want to say Anne has a fantastic reputation in the dog community. I think we couldn't ask for somebody better to develop this in our area. I personally am looking forward to being able to train indoors in air conditioning because the heat is just too much around here. Dog people spend a lot of money. They do a lot of socializing together. We're not always great with other people, but we do like to get together with each other and share stories about our dogs. So I think you'd find there's a lot of money that would come into the area. Currently, we would have to go probably to San Jose or somewhere else in the Bay Area to find an indoor facility. So I hope that the facility is approved, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Linda Blake, and I should have written a letter because I'm a lot better at that, but I didn't. So I have to tell you what I think, because I have 3 dogs that I've trained with Ann, 3 cattle dogs that really need a job. And then I think some of the sports that she's talking about training would be jobs that would make my dogs much happier. Because I don't know if you've seen cattle dogs, but they can be crazy without a job. And so I really hope that you would approve Ann. I also volunteer to train dogs with Ann, and I think it would be a wonderful resource for the local community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Heidi Dupre, and I do live in Placerville. So I also have a background as planning commissioner, so I kind of know where you're coming from and what the rules are and what you're concerned about and all that. So I've looked at this, and I want to give you an example of something that we're involved in. My daughter has been in the grooming business for like 20 years. She just recently located up to Placerville. We were looking for facilities that have grooming, training, so health of the animal, mobility, if they have some health issues, things like that. And of course, if people like myself who are older and my kids are grown and my grandkids don't come to visit, they're busy. And so, what do? You turn to your dog. So then I take my dog. Where do I take my dog? I don't know anybody. I found that agility, my daughter introduced me to this also, and I went with her. And so I learned, just as you will see. Most of the people there are pretty much like myself. Either they are not married at all, or widows, or widowers, or teenage kids, or whatever. They learn to be with their dogs, and they love what they're learning. Now, there is different sports. There is agility, which means running and jumping and all that kind of stuff. There's also some dogs like to sniff. So you teach them how to sniff something, you give them scents and all that. That doesn't require much. Then there is barn hunting. They put some hay, and people or the dogs go and sniff out and see if they find whatever they're supposed to be finding. So then they earn ribbons, they go up in class, they become more refined, and some of these people that have dogs that are very good are quite snobbish. So they come in good cars, they come well dressed, their dogs have like the pamper service, there is agility equipment, there is just the housing of the dogs, just their beds and all that. There is lots of money involved in that. So people do spend money, and they have education. And it's not too seldom that you run into somebody that has, that is a retired doctor or a retired lawyer or a retired school person or whatever. It gives you a nice variety of people, and they do have to qualify. If your dog barks, if your dog attacks somebody, they ask you, please don't come back. So it's, in a polite way, but you're being kicked out. And so, I mean, there is a little something to this. Now, to come back to my own case, we were looking for a facility, and we couldn't find one. For the same reason, there is restrictions, there is size-wise, area-wise. Some are in industrial parks that you can get into. They have the restrictions are just too strict. So we ended up finding a small place in West Sacramento on 1016 Jefferson Boulevard, and it was a dog grooming business. And we fixed it all up, made it all nice, and it does have floor drains in case a dog does something.
I hate to interrupt. I'm going to need to ask you to shorten it just a little bit.
Okay, I will. I was just going to tell you, it's a much smaller business. It's only like 1,000 square feet, but it has parking in the back and all that. We went to the city and asked for a permit. We got it like that, because behind the counter there were people that actually own dogs, know about agility. They had no problems with it. And we were concerned about this being a smaller space. Could we do some teaching there? Could we have some, sign up for classes, or maybe even a puppy class, or not class, but introduction to maybe, if you have a problem like snakes or something, that your dogs won't go and attack them or something, some kind of lesson like that. And they were very, very, they said, we need this, we want you there, and we got the permit like that. So that was a much easier thing. Now, to come back to Planning Commission, there are some mitigated factors that you maybe have to consider here, because you do have the fencing. I would say that, instead of a link fence, maybe a wood fence. I would also say that, instead of just treating an area with enzyme, I think maybe some water connection and sewer pipe might be a good thing. There is, there are things that you can do. Let me see what I had here. The insulation has already been addressed, so that shouldn't be a problem. But I do have the point to make about the licenses. You can require the license to find out if the dogs are licensed. But the whole reason for licensing is that your dog is vaccinated.
Yeah, I believe that we're on point with.
Yeah, so I really don't think that you can require people from out of the area here to come and show a license, if their dogs are registered in Sacramento. So I would say, kind of leave that open. But you said staff is going to look into this. So that would be my concern. But other than that, I'm glad she's here, because if Anne gets her business, then we can send our little trainees here to practice. And again, it's up and down this area here, and we keep it local. And, with all the support she has, I think she has a lot of people watching. So there's very little she can do.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm Frank Stevens, 25-year resident of El Dorado County. I'll keep it short. Anne's too modest to tell you, but she is a nationally recognized dog trainer and dog judge. She's wanting to bring a world-class facility to Placerville. My wife and I are some of those crazy dog owners that we travel to Sacramento, Ione, Alberta, French Cap, and beyond for dog training and for dog sports. Would be really nice to have it right here in our neighborhood. Americans spent $63 billion last year on their dogs. A big part of that was for training and for sports. Anne would like to bring some of that to Placerville. And so I implore you to approve her plan. It's needed. And we could have a world-class facility right here in Placerville. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lorraine Johnson. I own Sierra Animal Hospital. I've been there for 29 years as a long-term local business. Having the availability of a training center where I can send clients and their pets to do useful things is unique. It's not always available, and I'm looking forward to this being approved so that we can work along with Anne and actually provide proper training and proper activity for dogs. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I came with the 2 dogs that brought me here. I'm an agility trainer, I've trained dogs for 20 years. I've been an agility trainer specifically for 10 years. I just wanted to clarify a little bit because I know there's concern when you're thinking of dogs coming into the area. I have a very rigid process to have my students come in. Most of my students are by recommendation only through other trainers. If there is a problem, a behavior problem, they are referred out to a behaviorist. Anne would probably say the same as me. We don't deal with problem dogs. We don't deal with dogs with aggression problems or extreme behavior problems. Those people are sent to UC Davis, and they have a whole staff there that deals with that kind of problem. So I think there is always fear that you're bringing in dogs that are ramped up and have aggression problems or could get loose and run loose. Most of these dogs are, pre-screened, and in my case, they come usually recommended from another trainer. So I think that I've worked in another indoor facility. We had no problems actually. I've had personal liability insurance for 10 years and never had to use it. So I think that what would be nice here, some of my students come from Nevada. They come from out over towards Yosemite, that area. They travel all the way. We're traveling all the way to Placer County. I think that the money comes in here. They certainly eat. They use gas, and a lot of them use hotel rooms at times. So I think it is a benefit to have it all contained in this area, and we don't send our money further down the hill. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, last call for any additional support, and if you have something, if it would be different than what we've heard. All right, now I will tell you right now that was the easy part of the meeting, and so now I'm going to ask for anyone that has some concerns or opposition to the project to come to the microphone, and I'm going to request that the audience be respectful of any of the positions that are brought forth. Thank you.
My name is Joyce Francis, and I am a dog owner and lover. I've lived on Debbie Lane for 40 years. Debbie Lane used to be residential pretty much till the city let G&O change their driveway to Debbie Lane. They didn't make them improve the road. The road is atrocious because it has big potholes. The city does nothing about this. I don't understand. There is a road going up to the warehouse from Debbie Lane, and I presume people are going to park there to walk up there because it's a very short distance. And I didn't understand how she was going to, where she was going to put the trash, because if it's there, it would be very apparent from Debbie Lane. I did not get notice of this meeting, something was put in my mailbox Friday, so I did not write you a letter. I just feel, good idea, wrong location. This facility backs up to residential homes, both on Easy, Debbie, there's apartments around there. You're making Debbie Lane into a commercial road. Debbie Lane is city till past Ketsko, and then it is county, and it is a private road. You do no maintenance on it. This would just add more cars to a bad situation already. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Mike Short. I'm a property owner directly across the street from that entrance. I rent that house out, and they have 2 dogs that probably could use some training. Not that you guys offer that training. My question is the vagary regarding indoor or outdoor, and until that's addressed, I think you have a problem. Either it is according to the letter that you wrote me, or it isn't according to the rest of the letter that you wrote me. And that's my concern. When I saw that it was indoor, I was for it, and I still am for it if it was indoor. I see how it could evolve into an outdoor thing, and what can I say? That's up to the planning department. If people complain because you do the grass or whatever, and nobody even says anything, then so be it. Life goes on in that respect. As far as the potholes in the road, she is absolutely correct. That's a private road, as far as I'm concerned, from Green Valley Road, since it's Debbie Lane. And G&O does, on occasion, when we complain, as my tenants complain, hey, that they'll fix some potholes. They're not horrible about fixing them, but the county does nothing. So that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Diane Murillo. I've owned property on Placerville Drive since the 70s, various parcels. I did get a notice. I don't live on Debbie. I don't live on Easy, and I'm not residential. I am commercial. And I did get a notice it would be an indoor facility. I was absolutely shocked that the Planning Commission has all recommendations when you can't even have a rooster in the city. You can't have a breeding operation. You can't have a kennel. And yet you're going to allow something like this. It is needed. It is a wonderful business, but it's in the wrong place there. That is commercial. Your economic development department, what money are you going to get off of people paying for classes 5 to 8 a week? It's all labor. There's no sales tax. You have a little store. You sell a few leashes and muzzles. That's not an economic development business for the city for the use of that size building. Yes, it's been empty for 8 years, and it's been for sale for 8 years, and the price hasn't been dropped. Maybe that was why it didn't sell. We get a better business in there that can bring you more tax revenue. The homeless situation is horrid. Rayleigh's, myself, all of us have picked up the waste, human waste, needles, and now that the church does not feed them or find a place for them on the corner across from this building she's referring to and behind my property, and the permit I think has been revoked or not renewed on that, the homeless situation in the last month or two has really gotten better, a lot better in the area. And the police were wonderful over the years, coming immediately to drag them off properties and make them clean up their mess. So anyway, when I read your conditions for a conditional use permit, it's very specific in the very last line that comprehensive general plan, it must meet those objectives. And, big word, and, are not detrimental to the surrounding properties. This next to a residential area is crazy. Yes, it's needed. It belongs in Park West. It belongs out on Missouri Flat Road near the new animal control, where people get animals and they know where to go right away to enjoy them. In a building out by there, not in the city limits. The letters of support and letters that you got, 12 of those letters don't even live in El Dorado County. 3 of them didn't say where they live anywhere in the letter. I read every one of them. 4 people are listed on here. There was no letter included in the packet. So I don't think you're getting a fair thing, a distorted view. Great business, wonderful reputation, obviously, great demand, but a few classes a week, Monday through Thursday, 1 or 2 a night, and maybe 3 on a Saturday? Labor? Where does the city get economic development out of that? I don't understand what you're thinking to allow that to irritate all those people on Debbie, Easy Street, and talking to G&O. They certainly were not for it at all, but hopefully it is denied inside the city, and hopefully one of the beautiful places out in the industrial park and Park West area near the new animal control has a beautiful building that'll do the same job for everybody that's needed this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You may need to pull the microphone down. There you go. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen Lacey, and I did submit a letter. We didn't have a lot of time to actually put the letter together. Where I came from prior to Placerville, I did step down as the elected president of HOA, so that was something I was accustomed to. You caught an awful lot of the actual residents off guard. Some people were noticed and some were not, and it did take a little bit of footwork to go around. This is just a great idea in the wrong place. We came in here, we bought a place that's a R2A property, and it was nearly condemned. It was non-mortgageable, it was uninsurable, and we brought it back up, and we're helping improve this area. We have done so much work to bring this area up, and to put in something like this directly in my backyard is going to destroy everything we've put together. I'm the chicken lady from before. I'm pro-animal. I come from a horse ranch. I moved to Placerville after I broke my back. I'm not against animals. This just isn't the right place to put it. It is within the city of Placerville limits, but it is right directly adjacent to the residents. One of the houses is about from here to here, and it's the first house. And when they found out, they went and put it on the market and dropped the price to it. This is going to drop the area, and it's going to, this area is already at a tipping point. She's talked about the homelessness, and yes, when the Christ-like services was up, we did have a very large homeless problem. And the problem is you bring all of these homeless people in to provide a service to them, and then you close the doors at night. Where are they supposed to go? And unless it's below freezing, they were in our neighborhoods. They were in the warehouse. And actually, as we started to push them up out of the neighborhoods, I do believe they did end up in the areas where the warehouse was. Opening the warehouse isn't going to end the homeless issue. Not bringing them in and shutting them out at night is redistributing the homeless issue somewhere else. And if Christ-like Services comes back in and she's actually shutting them out of the warehouse, they're going to be back in the residence again. And they come at very late hours of night. They just don't have anywhere else to go. And that service that was provided was bringing them in for a purpose, offering them hope, trying to find a new job, trying to find a life, and then you close the doors at night. That was what the homeless issue is about. As far as the traffic's concerned, I'm sorry that there wasn't an assessment done. There is a very large traffic problem there. Debbie Lane is a dead-end road with 19 residences at the end of it. We come out into the G&O area, and the G&O specifically runs maybe at 8 in the morning or 9 in the morning. They close 5 o'clock Monday through Friday every day. And during that time, there is a lot of traffic in there, and getting in and out of there is difficult. On the weekends, there isn't any traffic issue at all. That entire area is quiet, and she's talking about coming in and only having classes on the evenings and in the weekends, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, 365, in our backyards. Even the fairgrounds doesn't do that. The Speedway doesn't do that. You don't have anything out there that is running this type of business model, and it's not in the commercial area. The animal control that you had on the Placerville Drive, there wasn't any residences that were right near there. I do think comparing it to a karate business is very appropriate. You're going to have an end and a start time with a burst of activity, and you're going to lock the people in Debbie Lane in a dead-end road. What happens is there's a fire. We're in the wildlife area. We're not in the city of Placerville with small little, we have big acreage back there, large trees, and if there's a fire, how's everybody going to get out if we're locked in a dead-end road? There isn't any other way out of that road. The potholes are hideous. That's an understatement. I actually spent $5,000 fixing my vehicles last year from broken suspension. You cannot add on to that without a plan on how you're going to fix it. And I don't think this particular business, currently, I think their business model says they're making $48,000 a year. You're going to lose that on your income taxes or the taxes from the residents alone. I'm about ready to submit to improve my property, and all the taxes alone of that are going to be greater than that. You're going to destroy the residents for nearly 100 people. And I'm sorry, it's a great idea, but not in the residence areas. This isn't a strictly commercial zone. It's a warehouse for storing wares, and it hasn't even been open for the last 8 years. And it's just not the right place.
Thank you.
So, thank you. I guess we're all going to do that.
All right. Hi, I'm Hannah Lacey. I'm a resident on Debbie Lane. This is my mom. But as a student, having a quiet place to finish homework or to do my reading is essential. And growing up, I've always gone outside to do my homework. And I understand in the future, Ms. McMillan mentioned that she kind of wanted to take outside classes. And I feel like, dogs bark, and I feel like that'll be a little bit of a nuisance, especially when I'm trying to focus on my work. And previously, dogs have escaped their owners, and they've ended up in our backyard. And one of them has mauled one of our chickens. I had to jump into the creek to save our chicken from being attacked by a dog. And even though it was just a one-time thing, even if a dog accidentally once gets off its leash or runs away, it could harm our animals, and I'm really concerned about that too.
Thank you. Did you own the rooster? No. Were you weren't the one that had the rooster? All right. Not you. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ryan Lace, and I live on Debbie Lane. For the past 4 years, I've spent every weekend and summer working on our fixer-upper house to make it a place where we can live in peace. Whether it is clearing blackberries out of the backyard, putting in floors, painting walls, or putting up fences, all I want to do is just make it a house. All I want to do is make it not just a house, but a home. We took out 7 dumpsters full of garbage from both inside and outside. We removed 8 dead trees, planted 25 orchard trees, and 50 flowering shrubs. If you put in this dog training facility, it will destroy this all peace and tranquility that has been created by our hard work. So please consider us while voting on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One second, hang on. All right. My name is Tiffany Lacey. I am a part-time resident of Debbie Lane and part-time of City of Placerville proper. I would like to preface by saying I am with everybody else where it's saying that this is a great idea, wonderful idea, definitely a great purpose, not the right location. Definitely not. I love dogs, and I feel not enough dogs get the level of training that they need, and this is definitely something that the public seems to want, just not at the cost of this neighborhood. I actually train and care for horses for a living, but I travel nearly an hour every day to do so in a location that's actually appropriate for this type of activity. I would never think of bringing them up here to do so, especially not near these type of residential areas. The places that I do them are already horse training facilities. They are within other horse people, next to horse people, next to horse people. I wouldn't bring them next to anybody else who doesn't do that type of thing regularly. If you add this many dogs into a neighborhood, coupled with the existing, there is already a dog issue in this neighborhood. That's something that hasn't been brought up yet. There are a lot of dogs in a very small area in this neighborhood that we have been trying to address that hasn't been actually solved yet. And I know she said that her dogs don't make the type of dogs that you'd be bringing in don't make a lot of noise, but all it takes is 1 or 2 barks and the entire neighborhood is going off for an hour or 2. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's something that until that is controlled, you cannot bring any more dogs in. And at this point, the biggest issue is definitely it's the road. The road is absolutely terrible. Like my mom said, we have spent thousands of dollars on car repairs just for the road that's already existing, and a large part of it is that G&O is using it for a commercial property on a road that should definitely be strictly residential, and adding in another residence or another commercial property. People were talking about that they would drive an hour, that they'd be bringing all these people in from all these outstanding areas. I don't see how that's going to be just a small amount of traffic, and I'm actually kind of concerned that nobody thinks that there's going to be a traffic issue. There will definitely be an added traffic issue. We are already having a huge issue with just one business adding in a business that's pulling in people from far away is going to be a humongous detriment to the rest of these people. And again, great idea, wrong place. It's not fair to do this to all the people of this neighborhood. This is our homes. This isn't we get to just go there, be annoyed for a little bit, and then go home. It's going to be a detriment to us for our entire lives that we spend at home, and that's just not fair. So I really hope she gets a better place to do this. This sounds like a great idea, just not here, please. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to express your opinion.
Hi, my name is Sandra McQuillan, and I just bought on Debbie Lane 3 months ago. I've invested a lot of money. I'm starting to cut out dead. The roads are bad. Eventually, I would like to get together and try and fix them, but if they bring the dog training there, I feel that they're going to travel. They're going to have to walk their dogs for a while after the training. I just don't see them not coming down Debbie Lane. We have enough dogs. I have 2 of my own. I keep them in the yard. But if they see other dogs and start barking, the whole neighborhood, the little gal said, barks. We're all trying to work together. Debbie Lane, there is no parking now. If they park in front, we won't even be able to drive through to get to our house. On both sides. It's very, very narrow. And I know that they say no, they'll never put a kennel, but I feel that once their foot's in the door, that anything can happen. They've already said, well, we might have training outside. We're not sure yet. So is it going to be yay, no, we are, or we aren't? No, it can't be just we might. I think it has to be a decision made and put in there that they're not allowed to or they are, so that we know what to expect. I agree. I think it's a wonderful thing. It deserves to go someplace else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, anyone else? Last call.
Hi, James Nato. I currently reside at the top of Easy Street. I guess the main concern I have is relative to the other entities that may be coming in to use some of the area or the training facility, and what I believe Ann would propose to mitigate the barking that may come about from, say, the police department coming and doing canine training, or the 4-H, or I think she said Hangtown Kennel Club possibly coming in and doing some basic training. So I want to echo some of the same concerns. Being a resident, my home overlooks the building itself. We hear the races. We hear all the dogs barking in the area until late at night. And we used to hear the dogs barking from the Coolwater Creek Pound. So any of those things that can set off the dogs in the neighborhood, any additional or initial barking just causes kind of the whole area to erupt with other dogs in the area. So if she can answer the question possibly of how she proposes to mitigate some of the other entities that may come in and rent or use the facility, that would be helpful for my understanding and potential use. I feel fairly comfortable regarding, especially with the people that she has here representing her professionalism, that she can control the barking when she's in control. I just have a question with regard to those other possible entities coming in and using the facility. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Last call. I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to refer to commission and ask if you want a break at this point, or do you want to deliberate and then take a break afterwards? Is that a consensus?
For the record, we can't hear that deliberation down here. So,
yes. So I asked the commission if they wanted to take a break now, or if they wanted to deliberate. We'll take a break after that process. And I believe I have a consensus to continue forward with the item. All right. We've heard presentations of staff, proponents, and opponents, and I'll open it up to commissioners that may have comments. Commissioner Zuba.
I want to circle back to the licensure item. that we've been talking about.
Sure.
Verifying that these dogs have licenses in whatever jurisdiction they happen to live. That to me seems like a unreasonable restriction on this business. It seems like it's a very difficult. The applicant is in the business of training dogs, not policing for dog license. I think that's the purview of law enforcement in whatever the jurisdictions that those dogs live.
All right, noted. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, staff has a kind of a point of order.
Yes.
It is customary to have the applicant come back and perhaps address some of the comments raised, and I think we should maybe give that applicant an opportunity to comment on what she's heard this evening.
All right. The chair did not do that because I did not hear anything in the pro or oppose that I thought the applicant hadn't already addressed, but I can extend the opportunity if you would like.
I have a question.
Yeah. You have a question? Yeah, sure. And if you'd be kind enough to come back to the podium.
You wanted to get up and stretch anyway, I could see.
Oh, yeah, big time. Just a couple of quick comments. We will not be parking on Debbie Lane. There is a parking agreement that has been generated, you haven't seen it yet, for all of the buildings from Grandpa's all the way through the 7533 building. Students and instructors will be parking in the parking lot. We will not be using the Debbie Lane access with one exception, and that would be some huge catastrophic event where we had to open that gate because of a fire or something like that. It's meant to be emergency egress. It is not access. Anybody who's taken a hard look at that driveway will understand why. I would not want to put my car on it. I'm not sure it will hold it, let alone the semis that it was supposedly built for. So as far as we're concerned, and I understand the people are commenting about the parking on Debbie Lane. It seems worse here all of a sudden, and I don't know where those people are coming from. You are getting a lot of cars parking on Debbie Lane. Perhaps something we need to bring up at the appropriate entity. So our people will be parking in the parking lot for the 7533 building. The access to the building is only from the Green Valley side. They will not be able to access from the Debbie Lane side. I think that's important.
So that was my question. Would you object to a stipulation that the gate on Debbie Lane remain locked during business hours except for emergencies?
I'd be happy. It's locked now, and it's going to, as far as I'm concerned, it's going to stay locked.
I
so I
think
have no
that
problem
answers
with that.
a lot of the questions that they have in terms of
And I agree with
parking
them.
and-
The
yes.
potholes are amazing. They're absolutely amazing. So, and I think that was one of the big concerns was the Debbie Lane. The other thing, to come back to the licensing, I have no problem taking a hard look at students to make sure their dogs are vaccinated, because that's really what licensing is all about. It's hard to police. Do you have a license? When is it expiring? That kind of nonsense. But it's very easy to police to say, show me a copy of your current vaccination when you make a registration for that class. That's what we do. That's our standard procedure. So nobody's going to come into that class that isn't vaccinated. If you're vaccinated in El Dorado County, when you get your vaccination, you're also getting your license. The problem is, I don't know how I actually police the people who have licenses from outside of the area. But I certainly can police, are the dogs vaccinated, which is really what it's all about. We want to make sure that nobody's at risk.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Just one question. I know you said, I mean, with the agility dogs and with dogs that have more training, you're not going to get the barking in the same way as you would with the beginner.
The baby dogs.
Right. But in your letter, you also show that you're going to do general obedience classes and focus and control classes, which
Right.
says this is a basic class, general obedience. This is a basic class for any dog to learn manners. It will teach come, sit, down, stay, etc. All dogs need basics. And then The focus
Sure.
and control is about teaching life skills and helping dogs overcome fear, learn to get along with children, other dogs, small animals. So with
Let me
those sounds more like dogs that may have issues. Okay. So there could be barking, other things that you wouldn't have with dogs like our friends that are here tonight.
Sure.
If you could talk a little bit about that.
Let me tell you where the members, the people that come into focus and control, have already done private lessons with me. So they can't get into class until they have basics. Then they come into that class to practice what they've already learned. So they actually do already have decent basics. That class is 6 students. It gets held twice a year. So it's not a big component. And quite frankly, we will probably do less of it because our focus is dog sports. We want to teach dog sports. So I really don't anticipate having that many baby dogs.
How about the general obedience class?
The general obedience class is, I anticipate that at some time in someplace in the future, and I wished I could tell people exactly when it would start, I don't know, that we might have an obedience instructor. I have been approached about a competition obedience class. What that means, that's the dog that probably has hundreds to thousands of hours. They want to, how can I get the perfect 200 score in the ring? As opposed to, these are the people that show every weekend. That's general obedience. That's very different than the classes that Hangtown offers for the new puppy that we got over Christmas. We're not addressing that. That's not our focus. Our focus is dog sports.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions of Ann while she's here? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I want to make just a couple of observations just to kind of get things started. It seems to me that there's kind of a general theme of we have a difficult neighborhood already, and there's issues with dogs and noise and some other things. And I'm having a hard time saddling the applicant with those problems. So the question is the introduction of this operation going to aggravate that? We have a vet clinic across the street already. There's animals there, and those animals are of all variety, and they are being brought by people of all different levels of skill. Little old ladies, and nothing against little old ladies, but little old ladies and you know, other. And so it's not very well controlled, whereas the clientele that I am anticipating from this are going to be a little bit more controlled. I won't use the term sophisticated, but in more control of their dog. I'm hearing consistently we have a deteriorating building negatively impacting property values. We have the homeless problem. We have these bad things that it really seems to me that having occupancy of the building and having the business there is actually going to mitigate, it's going to improve. And I'm really having a challenge finding how this operation would be a detriment to the neighborhood. This is a commercial zone. So a tire shop or another auto body or any manner of business, a loud business, the cabinet shop, whatever that could make a lot of noise could certainly go in there. And as opposed to something along this line. And so my inclination is that this is not going to be a problem. The issue with Debbie Lane, I think, has been resolved. And I thought I was missing something. The people were talking about that, and I didn't see how that would happen because the entrance is clearly off of Green Valley Road, and you wouldn't want to try to stop on Debbie Lane and then walk all the way around. That just didn't make any sense to me. I was a little bit concerned by some people who came to this commission not that long ago to ask for permission to have other types of animals, in one case chickens, wrote in one of the letters that now they would be in opposition to this. I was struck by that because some of the same arguments against the chickens are some of the same arguments that are being made against this. And I'm just having a difficult time putting those together. I am not challenged by the indoor versus the outdoor. I think if anything, we could restrict the outdoor to no later than 7 p.m. But I'm not bothered by the outdoor. This is a commercial zone, and things can happen outside. And I would absolutely be prohibitive against a kennel and overnight accommodation for animals, for dogs. That should be an absolute restriction. And they're not proposing it, but I did hear about a 5 and a 10-year plan, and I don't know exactly where it's going to go. So maybe we need to give some consideration to that. So I'm certainly disposed to approve this. I think that there are adequate mitigation measures as to what have been described, and I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners for further discussion and possible motion on the request.
Mr. Chairman, if it would help the commission, a kennel use would require a conditional use permit. So
not be permitted under the requested CUP.
It's not requested this evening, and if that were to be part of the business model in the future, they would have to come back before you or this body for a conditional use permit.
Okay, so that's a separate privilege then, is what you're saying? All right, thank you. I do want to speak to the licensing. I will respectfully disagree with Commissioner Zuba. I am not concerned about that, the licensing component, certainly with regards to the vaccination, wherever Mr. Brzezinski's letter is. Oh, it's on my notes are on the back of it, that's fine. First of all, the commercial animal establishment permit, I think, is just a straightforward permitting issue. That's just administerial. And then the current rabies, the applicant indicates they have a vested interest in wanting to make sure that the vaccinations are current. And then with regards to the other licensing, I think what I requested was that the applicant would work with Mr. Brzezinski to come up with a method that would work, that wouldn't be onerous. But I'm not really concerned about that personally. So I mean, I'll leave it up to the rest of the commission how they feel about that piece, but it really doesn't bother me.
If I may, regarding the licensing issue, we heard a comment that there are clients, for example, coming in from Nevada. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they do dog licensing differently there than we do in El Dorado County. And I don't know what type of business overhead, I'll say, would be necessary to verify licenses versus verifying vaccinations, which, I mean, I've done this with my dog where I simply bring in the veterinary records and there it is, and that's done. And then nobody's ever asked for a dog license. I think there's a conflation of two issues when it comes to the license. Either you've paid the fee to whatever jurisdiction you live with your dog, or you've vaccinated them. And to have a license seems to suggest that you've done both. And I think the applicant is only concerned with the health and safety of the dogs. So I'm certainly in support of requiring, as she is already doing, that the dogs have all the proper vaccinations. But I think verifying with different jurisdictions, especially across state lines, that seems to me, as someone who has operated a business, that seems very burdensome.
For the pleasure of the commission, I would not oppose a motion that did not include that particular requirement. I'm just saying I'm not concerned about it. And there still may be a way the applicant can work with Mr. Brzezinski outside of the requirements of this body.
Just some comments, really. I love the idea. I think a few months ago we approved an indoor archery and gun range, and it was a great reuse of a property that has sat vacant for a long time. That brought other people into the city as well as a resource for Placerville. So I think there's some similarities there in that sense for an infill project. A couple of things, though, that do give me a little concern, and that is sort of the may or might the applicant in terms of, well, we may have outside training, we might do obedience training for lessen the agility. I have a little bit of an issue with that. I think we should have a little bit stricter sense of what this is going to do, because we either say they can or they can't. I mean, I think it's what the market will bear, right? I mean, it could be that you get a lot of people that want to do obedience classes. Would you not do them if you had the opportunity to have that income level or that income stream come in? So I think we don't know what that's going to be, potentially. So I don't know if anyone else has any concerns with that or not. But for me, I did have a little bit of concern with especially with the letter that went out that said, some said you weren't going to have it, and then we were. So I just want to be consistent with what the public's going to get if we approve this project.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments? Possible motion?
I'd like to ask a question of staff. This indoor training versus outdoor training. If the city receives too many complaints, can this be brought before, I guess, the Planning Commission, or could the outdoor training be restricted in the future, either by hours or just prohibited if it proves to be a nuisance, a noise nuisance, for instance?
Okay, it sounds like you got a two-part question.
Oh, yeah.
First, the first part.
Nothing easy around here.
Vice Chair Keeney, the answer to the first question, yes. If the city receives complaints, we follow up on those complaints. If it is true that we find that these are issues that are truly happening, then yes, one of our options is to come back before you and take this request for your consideration to consider modifying the conditional use permit or revoking the conditional use permit. I've already forgotten your second part of the question.
I think that's good. I think I kind of rambled and you
hours.
You know,
okay.
Hours, but that was the other thing. You either revoke or yeah.
Yeah. Could you restrict outdoor? Was that kind of the nature of your question?
That was, could they come before the Planning Commission, and then at that point we abate the concerns of noise by saying you can't train past dusk outside or after 5 p.m., something like that. We have that ability.
Absolutely. Under this conditional use permit, you can control the activity that's being proposed tonight. I will add that City Manager Morris did whisper to me while discussion was going on that regarding outside training, perhaps the commission might want to consider, since the majority of the use, as we know it, although there appears to be some conflict on whether or not there might be outdoor training in the future, but it sounds to me like the first phase and second phases of their business model involve really the indoor component. Perhaps a way for the commission to satisfy some of the neighbors who are in opposition of the outdoor training, that you could condition this request for indoor only, and then if the applicant wanted to come back when it serves their business model to have outdoor activity, they could request a modification of their use permit, and the commission could hear it at that time. So that would be another way of addressing that concern.
Thank you very much. I'd like to kind of review our comments, if you don't mind taking that much time.
Oh, go ahead.
I bicycled around the facility, actually, and Debbie Lane.
How you got a flat tire?
No, actually, it was someplace. Anyway, that's.
She got a
very,
flat tire.
very quiet back there, and I think that the applicant, the proponent of the project, has already anticipated a lot of the objections that the neighbors have, rightfully brought before us, the noise and smell, and so on. And they're proactively addressing those kinds of things. And so I, like you, am very, I think this is a good use of the property. It's empty. I do want to respect the comment that this is not a strong economic driver as far as sales tax. But right now we've got an empty building. It's been that way. Hasn't been generating much of anything. There's when I went out to look at the site, there is the Shabby Rabbit is there, has a small presence up there. So really nothing's happening. At least this fills it up and it starts to address and gives address concerns of the neighborhood of as far as the homelessness and abandonment look of it. So I am very encouraged by this application, and I would like to maybe we could start discussing some additional uses or conditions to put on this project.
I've written several down. Condition 8 I would require the applicant to obtain the El Dorado County Commercial Animal Establishment Permit and to require all clients to have a current rabies vaccine and a current current rabies vaccine, period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But also require them to consult with Mr. Brzezinski regarding the outdoor jurisdiction, but I'm not going to require them to meet his request here, but I am going to require that they consult with him on that and at least have the discussion about the licenses from outside jurisdictions. I think some of the concerns that were raised, and Commissioner Zuba in particular, I think were absolutely legitimate. I would go the other way with regards to the outdoor component, and I would permit it and then put a limitation on the hours and no exterior lighting for that purpose. So I prohibit exterior lighting. That's automatically going to limit you seasonally, and then I would put a time limit of 7 p.m. We generally allow construction projects to go 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and I would just say consistent with that. And then beyond that, I think that I would be amenable to approving.
I would like to add one to that the gate on Debbie Lane be locked and used for emergency entrance and exit only.
Yeah, very good. Thoughts by commissioners?
That gate is there for a reason, and I don't know what that reason is. If it's fire code, something to be able to turn a fire engine
The
on?
original intent was that Kinsco Plumbing Supply had trucks back up there part way up because of the slope where they could offload pipe and that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
How can we best hammer out the wording on the 3 additional conditions? Do you want to just send it back to staff for working on that?
Oh, no, I think we can absolutely do it here.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think with those additions, I think since you have them there, I think.
You want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I can do that. So I'd like to make a.
Is that all right?
I actually did a lot of scribbling over here
by
as
all
far as
means.
the permit
stab
from the
away.
county. So you can start working on the other 2. And I would like it to read, to protect public health, safety, and general welfare, the business owner will obtain and maintain a permit from El Dorado County per county ordinance section 624010 for commercial animal establishment. How's that for a draft?
That's very substantial, very concise.
Yeah, that's exactly what staff has. Operation of this use is subject to obtaining and maintaining a commercial animal establishment license from the El Dorado County Director of Animal Control. Licenses are required under County Ordinance Section 6.24.010.
And the applicant should also be required to verify current rabies vaccination or right, a certificate or whatever it would be appropriate. Is that right? Because we're good with that. We're good with that. The only thing that we thought might be a little bit too much reach was the other jurisdictional licensing, right?
Are you looking for a motion? Do you have any more?
I'm really looking for a motion.
Is it the language on that, on the rabies?
Oh,
Well, I would just take that the applicant shall require all clients to have a current rabies vaccine. That's exactly what Mr. Brzezinski wrote.
So that would be condition 10?
And actually, the applicant shall verify, shall require and verify. Yeah, I think you need to have both, require and verify. We must inspect what we expect.
And then the last condition would be that the gate on Debbie Lane would remain locked and be used for emergency use only.
Right. Okay. And then we have the outdoor use.
That's what I'm missing. Limiting that to 7 p.m.
Outdoor use shall be limited to 7 p.m. and no outdoor lighting for a training area shall be permitted. No exterior lighting for training.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we.
Oh, please.
What is my motion then?
Approve the conditional use permit?
To approve the conditional use permit with the 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 additional conditions we've just identified this evening.
And we'll have to make the findings that A, B, and I want in the record, we made the findings A, B, and C, which are on one of the pages. I have notes on the back of everything.
Okay.
Page 5 and 6
5 and 6.
are Roman numerals 1 through 4.
Yeah, but the findings that we have to make are contained in the staff report on page
5?
Page 5? Yeah.
5 and 6
Page
findings.
4, they start on page 4.
Oh,
A
do they?
is on page 4. What? Is that right? Yeah, where's A? I'm missing A.
Bear with us.
I'm missing page 4. No wonder I can't find it.
You are.
Yeah, it begins
here
on
it is.
bottom of page 5
Bottom of page
and continues
4,
to page 6.
Bottom of page 4 is the findings.
Oh,
A.
here we go. Start with
the
A.
findings, bottom of page 4. Then we have
Okay.
A, B on top of page 5, A, B, and C. I think C in particular is important.
The findings do continue on page 6.
They do? Oh.
Right, that's where I started with findings 1. Okay, so my motion is to adopt the findings
Oh,
as.
yeah, okay.
Wait,
You could call them out as Roman numeral 1 and 2.
how about A on 4, the
Okay.
proposed use? Is that the best way to describe this and satisfies your concern? Findings A, B, and C of the staff report. So we adopt those findings and we further make the findings 1, 2, 3, and 4, Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the conditional use permit. And how do we add in attachment A is amended as we described,
Yeah, and then just list them as numbers.
listing the additional conditions?
As amended.
Be condition 8.
Conditions.
Condition 8, read
8.
it, which is what you...
To protect public health and safety, and general welfare per county ordinance, section 62410, finding, condition 9, limiting the hours to 7 p.m. 10, that the business owner will maintain records and verify vaccinations of all the canines at the facility, and
No, will require and verify vaccination records, I
require
think.
and verify vaccination records of all the canines at the facility. And then 11 would be that the gate on Debbie Lane remain locked and used for emergency access only.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? We have clarity on the motion. Everyone understands what the motion is and the language. Staff concurs with the language as presented.
Correct.
Any additional discussion? Call the question, please.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member Juba.
Aye.
Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Motion carries. I'll advise the applicant. And I want to thank the audience for being polite and respectful and well-mannered, just like your dogs. And I have to advise you that this is appealable to the city council. There's a 10-day process that somebody may file an appeal. But otherwise, good luck. We're going to recess for approximately 15 minutes. Does that work?
15.
10?
10.
We'll recess for
5.
Be back. Please return at 20 hours.
Yeah, one comment staff would like to make.
Yes,
and
go ahead.
basically, it doesn't matter if the public hears it, but basically just to remind the Planning Commission that staff will come back with minutes that should reflect those additional conditions, and you'll have another chance to look at those
Oh,
for
great.
the wording.
Terrific. Thank you, Pierre. Wow. I'm giving you a break. You're the one who always needs a break. Check, check, 1, 2, check, check. We're going to go ahead and reconvene. We're just 2 or 3 minutes ahead of the time that I promised, but I think the commission is ready to go. And that'll bring us to item 4.2, a project at 301 and 305 Main Street, a site plan review. 12-02, I think, is the number of the site plan review and progress on that. And Andrew, you have the staff report.
Yeah, tonight you are to consider some follow-up items to that site plan review. These include exterior lighting, signage, and mechanical equipment for the 2 buildings at 301 and 305. The applicant is proposing decorative fixtures, and those were pictures of those are in the applicant's submittal package. Those are available for you to review and consider tonight. They appear to complement and assist with the overall ambiance and look of the buildings and the rehabilitation that's been done. The fixtures meet the site plan review criterion that the lighting should be part of the architectural concept, and the fixtures are harmonious with the building design. Staff recommends their approval. Member Keeney did ask me a question earlier this week regarding her observation of 2 additional exterior light fixtures that exist on this building. Those were not covered in staff's report. Mea culpa, I was not aware that they were there. So there are 2 bulbs at the recess entry of 301 and 305. I did alert the applicant, Ms. Taylor, about this issue. They are not covered in staff's report. Perhaps a way for the commission to handle that particular circumstance. If the other items on the agenda are fine, we could continue that to a future meeting to bring those back for your consideration. That might be one way to handle that. As for mechanical equipment, the applicants have designed a roof platform, and they provided an exhibit of their elevation showing its location. This is the platform for the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, or HVAC units. A permit for this work was obtained and construction completed. Its location, once again, is shown in the agenda item materials. The location effectively screens the equipment because it's placed towards the rear of the building, and so it is really it's not visible at all from Main Street, and you'd really have to crane your neck to see it from the alley or Center Street. A canvas awning is proposed by the applicant. They provided the commission with the materials proposed. It's a canvas product. The colors are provided as well. These colors and the awning, I think, I've been here 17 years. I do remember the awning that was there before. I think the awning style and the material proposed complements that and is consistent with what was there before. Staff certainly recommends approval of the awning as conditioned in staff's report. As the materials appear to be quality and durable, once again, the colors complement the building, and the request for this awning would be consistent with the site plan review criteria. as noted in the staff report. The applicant's sign plan is provided as attachment B. There are a variety of sign types as part of this plan, including wall sign, canopy sign, mural, projecting sign, directory, and potentially even historic signs. Included are the justification and support references that the applicant has provided for what they consider are proposed murals as well as historic signs. And the sign locations are on both the Main Street or south elevation as well as the Stagecoach Alley elevation, which is the north side of the building. To kind of assist the staff, or excuse me, assist the commission and the public regarding these requests, staff prepared a table, which is table 1 in your staff report. It was arranged in a way so the commission could look at all of the signs on the particular elevations. So staff assigned our own reference number associated with that. We do have slides with all the signs for tonight's request, as well as some that the staff is requesting the commission to make determinations on. So we will have those that we can flash and show up and discuss further. But as for the signs that I think staff thinks that the commission can approve and dispense with quickly this evening are those that are numbered 1, 5, 7, 8, and 9. These are the signs that involve hanging from the over the sidewalk to a wall sign along the alley frontage. These have similar aesthetic, style, material, color, and meet our design criteria in the site plan review code section, as well as the development guide for just those aspects. Staff recommends conditional approval of these signs, requiring a sign permit for any sign that is determined by the commission to not be exempt this evening from the sign regulations. One thing of note tonight is that building occupancy has not been granted for 301 Main Street. That's an important distinction this evening, and I don't want to give the commission or the applicant the impression that they have to install the signs for 301 when they don't have a tenant for it at this particular time. So for the commission's benefit, it's the overall aesthetic, which is what you're approving tonight. The sign copy that goes within that sign may change depending on who the tenant might be in the future. So I think from the commission's perspective, they should look at the overall aesthetic of the sign, its material, its design, perhaps where it's located on the building, etc. But I want to stress that they don't have a tenant for that building. The city has not granted occupancy for such a building, and so therefore permits will not be required until the city grants occupancy for that structure. The other signs that are part of the inventory of your review tonight involve signs number 2, number 4, number 6, and number 10, and I can bring those up on the screen if you'd like. Nod if you'd like us to do that right now. Yes? No? Okay. I have no way of doing that. I might ask Jason. We might have to move the carousel in or out. For you guys have these in your packet, so this is really more for the benefit of the public. But Jason, can you assist with? Okay.
Just trust us on this. They're in focus.
Well, I do have individual slides for these. Does that help? That's number 2, number 4, number 6, and number 10. Now, it wasn't my intent tonight to go into every analysis. Those are that's in your staff report. We're going to hear from the applicant, but I wanted to make sure that let you know that these slides are available for further discussion as we move forward in tonight's discussion. So part of your role tonight is to make a determination on those signs, as I've referenced earlier, that I think that the commission can dispense with tonight. The other signs, such as the ones we've just gone through, the city does not really have a firm grasp as to how to define these, and that's why we're asking the commission to make those determinations this evening. And this would include the, in staff's perspective, it sure looks like it classifies as a sign, and that's the hangman dummy, the noose, as well as the gallows. Yeah. So that's another sign that staff would like the commission to weigh in on this evening. Staff received this week, after packets were distributed, a public comment, and staff did provide this to you. It's from Amy Sellers, so that's part of the public record. Pages 4 and 5 of staff's report provide the commission with recommended findings and specific actions, labeled A, B, C, and D. Recommended action A suggests the commission make the finding A through E, and then conditionally approve the 2 light fixtures, the location of the roof-mounted HVAC equipment, the canvas awning for 305 Main Street, and signs staff labeled number 1, 5, 7, 8, and 9, where indicated in the applicant's submittal package, subject to new conditions number 7 and number 8 of the Site Plan Review 12-02. Staff is also recommending action B be taken on this evening, and that suggests that the commission utilize the information as part of the public record submitted thus far, after hearing also from the applicant and from the public. Then make determinations for sign numbers 2, 4, 6, and 10 as to the type of sign it correspondingly falls under, using the definitions within section 10417 of City Code or the zoning ordinance. Recommended action C suggests the commission make findings for master sign plan approval under Site Plan Review 12-02 for those signs determined under recommended action B are not exempt from the sign regulations. And finally, recommended action D suggests the commission approve or do not approve those signs determined under recommended action B to not be exempt from the sign regulations as part of the partial sign plan under the recommended action A. Would you like me to bring the lights back up for you, or yes? So that concludes my staff report. I do have all of the folio provided by the applicant, and as I mentioned earlier, I've got the individual signs on separate slides, should you want to discuss any individual slide or sign as part of tonight's review.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions of staff by commissioners? While we're still trying to reorganize our paperwork, I think. I'm going to ask, we received one public comment. You lifted it up. It looks very brief. I'm not finding that here.
It's an email from August 19th.
Mr. Keeney took care of me. Oh, I did see this. I don't know where I put it. All right. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. I do have a question, and I really appreciate how you've laid this out. But if we exclude, my question for you is, if we exclude 4, 2, no, I don't know that I want to. Let me see if I want to exclude those. You might be right. 5. Don't want to exclude 5. Where's 6 and 10? Where's one more? Oh, here's 6. Okay. The total amount of square footage they're allowed, based upon frontage, was about 75 square feet, if I remember correctly from the staff report. Was that what it was? Does anybody remember that number offhand?
For which building? On 305, it's 71 square feet, and for 301, it's 119.4 square feet.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Okay, what's the calculated square footage for number 10?
108.
108.
108. Okay. And that, okay. All right, I don't recall. All right, I think what I'd like to do, first of all, staff made a number of recommendations, things that we should approve. And do we want to discuss those? Is there need to discuss those? Can we make a motion to simply approve those as staff's recommendation?
I want to hear from that.
Oh, I apologize. I'm actually still wrapped up in the previous item, but let's go ahead and do that. Forgive me. There's no questions of staff by commission.
I just want to clarify that we can, tonight, rather than approve a comprehensive, encompassing plan, we can do piecemeal approvals tonight.
You absolutely can do that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all those options are on the table.
I guess I do have one question.
Good.
Because we don't have a tenant in 301, why are we doing both right now?
Well, it's common when, let's say, a commercial strip center.
I get the aestheticness of
Yeah.
the having a theme, but to the individual sign that it could, whatever the store may be, could still fall within a parameter without. So it seems a little prescriptive at this point, at least for the hanging sign.
I don't know whether to treat that as a comment or a question. Is that a question?
Both, I guess.
Okay. I think to illustrate perhaps the best way would be if a strip center was proposed where you've got multi-tenants and maybe the applicant or developer does not have tenants yet, but a sign package would be part of that review, and a developer or property owner would want to keep a design aesthetic alive for their project. There are some examples where we have a sign plan for a strip center, like Hangtown Village Square, for instance. There's a specific design aesthetic approved for that subdivision, that commercial center. And new tenants, when they come in, they have to adhere to it. Of course, the sign copy changes each time a tenant comes forward, but the overall look and appearance of the sign remains constant. Does that help address your question?
It does, although I would argue that these buildings are a lot different and unique than a strip mall would be, but I do understand the basis for it. Thank you.
All right, since Commissioner List has reminded me of my faux pas of not opening up the public hearing and hearing from the applicant, I'm going to do that at this point. Is the applicant and or their agent available to speak to this? The chair recognizes Ms. Sue Taylor.
Sue Taylor. So we disagree with some of what is being required for us to do in this permit, which has been submitted to the record. So there was an attachment at the end of the staff report you had to link onto that put in some of those objections. But in order to hopefully put this to rest, we're submitting everything the city has requested plus everything we intend to add to the exterior, hoping that this would wrap some of these issues up. We have had varying experiences with the Planning Commission, and I'm not sure what to expect of this hearing. I'm already a bit shocked that something now was added as we were just sitting here to this agenda item that we had no knowledge of. To include the hangman dummy as a sign that has to get approval today was never brought up until just now. So I'm having a bit of an issue with that. I was going to assume a positive outcome until I saw that, and and was just hoping to support and ask that. Okay, go ahead, Andrew. I'm not sure. Huh?
You made, we're asking the commission to determine what type of sign it is. We know it exists.
Right.
We're not requesting that the the planning commission approve it.
Okay.
It's
So
to classify it as a sign.
Okay, you got my woo. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Because this kind of started with a light fixture, and it just seems to keep growing. So I was just a little nervous. I was kind of hoping, because of all the floating items that are within this packet, that maybe you could discuss it before we close public comment to make sure we know what we need to comment on, because there's so many things in this. And I was really hoping you don't piecemeal this. I spent 2.5 years trying to help Wilbur with a simple pavement project, and I just don't want to go through that again. So, and I ask that you, I think most of this we approve and agree on in concept, and I appreciate Andrew's presentation to explain many of the different moving parts, and basically it comes down to 4 signs that need to be identified so that we know how to classify all the rest of the signs. And I would say that, going through this, the staff approves the awning, the mechanical equipment, even though that mechanical equipment, by the way, was approved by planning, I have it signed off from August 28th, 14th by Pierre, and then the permit was finalized in April 19, 2016. But I'm okay to go forward with this because I think we're approving that it's okay where they ended up again. So aside from that, I think it's mainly the signs that we're talking about, and these 4 signs that are in question. The Hangman's Tree historic spot on the back of the building was found when we popped off the plaster, and we have pictures that go back to 1940. We basically touched it up, and that is, to me, I would call it a historic sign. It does, I wrote a note here, that building's actually a state historic marker location. It references, those depictions reference the historic location. It doesn't identify a business. It's the same on the front and the back. And so those are not helping to define the business. They're just there to reference the historic location. And with that amount of coverage, we would not be able to have any business signs if you count that as coverage. So we would hope that those 2 could be classified as historic, which is exempt, and then move on to the next 2. Another side note on the sign on the front, I think it's been permitted at least twice. We had it permitted back in, I think, 2012. April 14, 2012. So I think it's more having to do with how you are classifying that in order to get more signage for the business. And then the other 2 signs, one is the mural for the Taylor Drobish restoration. And I would consider that more of a memorial tablet, which I think is just under incidental signs. It's not, there's no business that has anything to do with that. It was just, in a way, an event in history, and kind of to memorialize that when the building was restored. And then I think the other sign is the Herrick brick building on the back, and that was, again, I don't know if you call that memorial, incidental, historical. It really is, that's what the original building looked like. It had a flat roof. It was called Herrick's brick, and it was built in 1853. So that was more to memorialize the building and its history. So I think those are the main concerns, are those 4 elements, and I would hope that they would be considered exempt so that we can actually have business signage on the buildings. The ones, and I appreciate Andrew explaining, it'd be nice if you could also pretty much conditionally approve the style of the other two signs for the Herrick's building, because that there will be a wood sign that is designed as you see in the what we submitted, and it may not have that word on it, but it will be that design. And also we already have, so the long, if you can go back to the back of the building where it says it has the long sign on the north. Yeah, with the signage, I don't even know, it's so small you may not be able to see it. There, go back. That one. It is pretty small. No, that's the front. So if you can get the drawing like that, but it's the back side. Okay. So there's a long sign that goes over the two windows and below the other. We actually already have that sign that we were going to repurpose. It's an existing historic sign already that was used in Placerville on Main Street. So the size of that is consistent, and it would pretty much look the way we've given you the design package. And like again, I said, it may not have these exact letters, but it would be that style of sign. And I would say if you could give us the approval for those so we don't come back and go through this again, then if it ends up that we don't put these signs in, then we would have to come back to the Planning Commission for anything different. So I would appreciate if we could just pretty much conditionally approve those two, so based on the style. And I think those are the 4 signs that are at issue.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much. Questions of the applicant? Mr. Lewis?
I like your approach. We need to identify historical buildings so a visitor to the town has an idea of what really happened here, instead of just a bunch of old buildings. I really appreciate that. The one concern I have is something that has not been addressed. It's not on this tonight, and I hope you will look into it. You or Mr. Dorbish, your contractor. The corrugated roof is rusting and dripping on the sidewalk. And I think there is a material that can be put on that to keep the look that you have, but keep it from dripping. If I was a visitor, walked down the street and had a light colored coat on and it dripped on me and I got rust, I would not be a happy camper.
I'll take note of that. Thank you.
Okay. Other than that, I appreciate what you're trying to do with the signs. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter?
Chris Payne, I'm the president of the El Dorado County Historical Society. Earlier I was before you just as Chris Payne. We've been watching the evolution of these buildings for as long as I've been in Placerville, since 1979. Certainly, the character of the buildings is what the Historical Society is most interested in. You know, what is the finished look? Certainly everything that I've seen here today, nothing offends me. I'm very positive in what I see. And therefore, I could go back to my group, Historical Society, and speak to this in meeting you and saying, hey, they've done what's right. I believe that details are significant in terms of my own career as a civil engineer. Details are what it's all about, because the accumulative effect of those details is aesthetically pleasing, and in this case, that's what we have here. I did go through the package, and I did see at the end that the applicant had submitted their take on today, which certainly is a site plan review 1202. The applicant's here for that reason. A review for approval of a comprehensive plan for exterior lighting, signage, mechanical equipment, and awning to satisfy condition 3 of the site plan review, SPR 12-02. So there is so much information, though, embedded in that related to the details that I'm describing to you, that as I see them put up on the screen, I'm impressed. I'm impressed because I can't remember in my life here that we've ever spent so much time on such unique buildings and historically so significant. The question of the dummy being a sign, I don't agree. I totally don't agree. It's a mannequin. It's not a sign. But is that acceptable to the character of the building? Yes. People come up and take pictures of a family, and it's a significant part of it. And so for somebody to say that it's a sign, I don't agree. I totally don't agree. But then people don't agree with me sometimes. I don't think you should take this piecemeal, because this is a package. And so if you take it piecemeal, that is, okay, well, we're going to approve this, this, and this, then there's that notion that in the future something else won't be approved. I mean, I would take it all as a package. And I think it's very, very, very important. Let's see if I got all my information here. I think that pretty much covers it. Oh, the Taylors were Preservation Award winners. That means we picked their project, this project, as our award winner, our annual award winner, and gave them a plaque and told them how much we appreciated their effort. So I hope that doesn't change. I want to see it completed the way that I envisioned it and the way we gave it the Preservation Award winning. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay.
Hello, my name is Jamie Taylor. I manage the ice cream saloon that is located inside 305 Main Street. If you look at the exterior, there is actually nothing on the exterior building that represents my business. The only thing that indicates my business is my logo inside the glass. We have not actually put any of the signs representing my business, the ice cream saloon, out there because of this this issue that we've been dealing with for years. Ideally, we would like to just close this packet, have it a done deal, and so we can move forward. I would like to be spending my nights with my 3-year-old instead of sitting here with this meeting, but I came here and things that I'm hearing, like the mannequin being put into a sign category. When the mannequin, if you go to the capital of Sacramento and you walk through, you can look at what is represented in Placerville, and in there is a picture of the dummy right there saying, this is what Placerville is, and it shows the mannequin. That is what draws tourists to this town. It's not a benefit just for me. I spend my days telling people about the history of what happens here. But me being a tour guide is not what brings in business to my store. I can't advertise that it's an ice cream store because we are over the limit of our 71 square footage signage because of the mural in the back. I can't have a sign on my back door saying, come in for a scoop, because that is exceeding it. If we could just close this still, and as a occupant of the building, I would like to move forward with this and move on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
My name's Chris Henry. I've known the Taylors for many years and seen their dedication to this project. And I also agree that the hangman's dummy is part of the building and shouldn't be considered a sign. And I really am impressed with the quality of the signs that should be held in and approved as a package tonight as historical signs. And they've done a fine work, and they're dedicated to making sure that these are historical buildings are preserved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Fran Duchamp. I agree with the people behind me, especially when Chris pulled out some things. It's amazing what they've done with this building. I'm a double art major. I come from a major art family. It's in my blood. That is a mural. When it's that old, it's not a sign. It's part of history. And so that should be excluded. And the dummy is kitsch. Kobe Kicks Ants has that giant bug. If you go to LA, where I'm from, you have Pink's. It's a building designed like a hot dog. You have, the Oscar Mayer wiener that drives around. So those are separate. Those aren't signs. It's called kitsch. And so, again, I agree. These people have done such precise work. I mean, even going to look for lumber that will match that time period. This should be truly honored, and it should just be a done deal. They're doing a beautiful job. This is all over the United States already, so give him a break. But I do appreciate the presentation that he did. I agreed with a lot of it. But again, the care that's gone into this and the historical backgrounds. I'm disabled. I would have just given anything to be able to be underground looking through the dirt and stuff before they put in the foundation and raise the roof and stuff. So this is truly an asset to Placerville. And when you go to any site that says, where do you want to go, the hangman's there. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else?
Good evening. I'm Tim Taylor. I own the Money Pit. I'm a little taken back that the conversation's even coming up tonight about the hangman dummy. I was given a copy of everything that was in the file for that building, and I didn't bring that with me. I didn't think I needed to, but there, if you want to check tomorrow, if you look in the file, there's a letter from Steve Calfee. I'm not sure with all the reorganizations what his official title was at the time. I believe he's in charge of the planning department or something. But anyway, he wrote that your planning department's complaint driven. I agree with that. He wrote a letter to someone that said that that was not a sign. It was not under the jurisdiction of the planning department. I took that at face value, and I thought that was a done deal, and I'm really surprised that that's even part of the conversation tonight. I'm not real happy that that's come up. I don't want to have to go there. I think we've got enough things on our plate already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to Mr. Drobish. You need to be quicker on the draw.
And it's Drobish, not Dorbish.
I said Drobish.
No.
With a draw.
Okay. Anyway, so I can attest to the rear text that you see there in the center, because I helped pull the plaster off the building, and lo and behold, look what we found. And it was faded, and we just touched it back up, just perfect. So I think that qualifies definitely as a historic sign, even though it disappeared in 1980 and came back a few years ago. It's always been there. And then just a quick address on the alcove lights, the two lights on the front. They're actually, so these are zero lot line property lines. So an alcove is actually on the property. It's not out on the public wall. So that's just something to consider. And also it's an 80-year-old vintage light from the area that was donated, and it was perfect for that space. So that addresses the two alcove lights. And great staff report, Andrew. It was very good. And also on the dummy and the ice cream cone, so city code, the sign ordinance, defines a sign. It must have text describing the occupants, the business, whatever is inside. There is no text on either of those items. So I think by definition, it can't even be considered a sign. It is I can't even say the word, the kitsch, whatever. It's a little bling. Anyway, they're very good-looking buildings. I think the two best-looking storefronts on Main Street, and I think all involved just deserve a giant slap on the back, and that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Be quick about it. I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and possible action. I want to start by saying I am probably the only commissioner here who voted in support of having these buildings demolished. And I want to say that I am so happy for the work, the effort, and the expense that the Taylors have put into this. And I cannot tell you how many times I have walked by those buildings, and particularly the casement displays, and I've thought to myself, what a great enhancement on Main Street. It really is tremendous. It is a huge asset to Main Street. I can't think of any other project that so embodies and captures the historical flavor of our community. And I am totally in support of it. I view, it's not Pierre, Jacques, I think is his name is Jacques, who's hanging from the rope. That's what I've heard. He may be an artifact, he may be an attraction, he may be a decoration, but I do not believe that he is a sign. Okay? And I believe that they should be completely exempt. I also support exemption for pretty much everything else that's there. The murals, the Taylor Drobish mural, the brick building, those are all exceptional contributions to this building. And I hope my commissioners would agree that we really need to give a large latitude in approval on this. And I'm just going to start there. I'm clearly biased on this, but I think we are really benefiting from passion and effort by the applicant in this particular case. We're probably going to have to construct motions that would support that position if we get to that point, but that's where the chair is this time.
If staff could make one a quick point, because I noticed there was the applicant and some of the speakers were talking about the maximum amount of signage that would be allowed based on the frontage of the commercial buildings. Because it's a master sign plan that's before you, you have discretion to exceed that.
Yes.
Thank you. There's no issue regarding maximum
you,
side here because of that.
And that's really important, I think, for my fellow commissioners to appreciate that we can look at this as a package and based upon what we believe is the value that the package is bringing, we can say, yep, the regulations are this, but we are comfortable in making an exception because of what it's bringing. And I hope that my commissioners will take that position.
Yeah, to help the commission, that's recommended action C.
Yes. Oh, thank you. And Mr. Drobish was correct. Very, very good staff report. When I read it previously, I thought I'm all dialed in with this, but now after the previous item, my brain is not quite as sharp. There are a number of things that construction status. Let's see, what we got: exterior lighting plan, mechanical equipment, the Main Street awning sign plan. There were a number of things that the staff recommended approval on. And so I don't know if the commission wants to discuss any of those items before we get into the specifics of the signs. This is where you corrected me and had me open the public hearing. That's where I was going. Starting on page 2, I believe. So staff recommends approval of the exterior lighting fixtures and plan as presented. Page 2, exterior lighting plan. Commissioner?
No, I was going to say I fully agree with the staff proposal here on the exterior lighting plan and the mechanical equipment. I don't have any other add-ons on those. It's good to me.
Anyone in opposition to the staff's recommendation on exterior lighting, mechanical equipment, or the awning?
One of my other concerns about the exterior lighting plan is, well, first off, that it is not complete. There are the two other, actually, it's two other fixtures, one of which, one has an antique style above the ice cream shop. That isn't included in here, but that's an appropriate fixture. but we don't know what's going to go in the alcove on Building 301. But we, I would think it's something to be
that we could
similar.
leave that to staff, right? Would you be comfortable leaving that to staff?
For staff approval of that final fixture. Okay. My other concern about that was under the zoning ordinance, and I sent a question to staff about the other requirements for lighting in the city of Placerville. Something that struck me it's not in the section reference 10-4, I think it's 10-4-16. It calls out that lighting is to be energy efficient, and I don't see any discussion of that, and perhaps I'm taking the wrong tack. I feel like there's still a lot of improvements we can do with energy efficiency, and it is part of our code, but does that not apply to this historic building?
I think from our interplay earlier regarding this issue, these particular lamps don't generate a lot of light intensity. They are one bulb, but the commission were to have it under its purview. They could condition that those lamps use energy efficient light sources. Mm-hmm. That would be a way to respond to your concern.
I feel like the exterior lighting plan is not complete because that's not even discussed. We have latitude to allow things either because we're looking to keep the look and feel of these historic buildings, but.
Okay, hold on. Okay, Sue. So hold on.
I just need to explain
at least allow me to recognize you to get there. And we may require your support, but we might be able to noodle through this otherwise. And I just want to make sure, and I was going to actually ask the question, probably Mr. Drobich, but I'll defer to you. But could your request simply be met with, because we have the issue of fixtures, which is one, and the historical flavor of those fixtures and the appropriateness, which I like exactly what they're doing. And the other piece is the energy usage, and can that be met with like an LED? Type of light. Can I be met with an LED? And I'm getting a nod in the back, and does that not even take care of the issue? Mike's saying yes. So Sue, do you need to speak to that, or we can solve it with an LED? Well, if you have to say something, then get up to the podium.
Yeah,
but sometimes we can just move forward.
I agree with that. We have low energy bulbs in there, but the buildings are under the historic building code, and we're not subject to the Title 24 energy efficiency for those buildings.
Right, but the issue is the city has additional requirements. But since we can solve it with LEDs, which are incredibly energy efficient.
Don't we have that in there? Yeah. We already have them that's what we're using.
All right, so that would sound like a non-issue then. Is that right?
We're here to deliberate and make a decision, and when we don't have a full plan and full text and explanation, I'm not comfortable in saying yes, the exterior lighting plan is complete. That is my concern with this, and also setting a precedent that, and I appreciate all the work that's gone into this historic building. Please don't think that I do not feel that way, but there are other old buildings that might come up before the commission, and at this point I'd like to get on the right foot and make sure that we make everyone adhere to the same ordinances that we have in our zoning.
What precisely would you require?
I would be more comfortable. This is, and my other commissioners may not agree with me. I don't feel that the exterior lighting plan is complete. We have pictures. We don't have descriptions of what they are. How can you substitute an LED light? That's great. I don't have that in front of me, and so if we're going to, I would like to do this on a comprehensive basis rather than
You might want to
piecemeal.
direct your question to staff and ask them why they were comfortable recommending approval.
Are you? So you are?
You're referring to the two lamps that were brought to my attention that were not part of the plan. Is that what your question is?
I'm referring to what's in the staff report, that staff recommends approval of the exterior lighting fixtures
as presented by the applicant.
Okay, so we have two additional fixtures that are not part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would be comfortable then allowing the applicant to meet with staff to solve that particular problem.
To make sure that the lighting fixtures meet all of our ordinances.
Well, there's some exemptions because of the historical building.
Okay.
Right, so we have the decorative component and we have the energy usage component.
Mhm.
And I would be comfortable allowing the applicant to work with staff in terms of what they're proposing, and staff make a determination. If staff felt there was a problem, they could bring it back to us. We could do that?
Yes, I'm comfortable doing that.
I want to make sure staff
is that?
says that we could do that.
If that's the opinion of the
Okay.
collective group,
So,
yes.
so that's one pathway. That's one pathway. And not to diminish your concern, because I support in principle what it is that you're saying. I'm just wondering if we need to be at that level with this, where this project is now. And I do have confidence in staff being able to handle something at that level for this particular project. And I would like you to be comfortable with that.
I'm trying to get there.
Okay.
This is it's a very mixed bag, and I know that staff feels, the city feels that this is a complete submittal at this time. I think there's a lot of information missing, but I also do trust staff to work with the applicant to, make sure that all the ordinances are followed on that. So
Just to correct the record, as submitted by the applicant's submittal package, yes, I believe the application's complete. But the introduction of these other two light fixtures were not part of that review, so I don't share that this application's complete as it relates to those. Can it be handled as was discussed, to leave it up to staff to work with the applicant? Absolutely. Staff can assist in that regard.
And I concur with it, how Andrew just described it. I think that's accurate. And the question would be if you're comfortable. We can do that at a motion. We can do that at the motion time. All right. Mechanical equipment, and it's shielded, and where it's located, and staff recommends approval of the equipment location. No comment. All right. The Main Street awning, staff recommends conditional approval. A construction permit would be required, but with regards to the durability and quality and color of the materials that are being proposed, staff believes that they're consistent. Do we have any issues with the awning? No. Okay. So then that brings us to the sign. And you pretty much know, I think, where I am on that. But if we need more detailed and specific discussion, I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners for that.
Just a clarification on the sign plan. We need to, on the ones that are undetermined, we need to
make a determination,
I think. on each one of these, correct?
And I think we should do that.
So at least on sign 6 and sign 10. So 6 being the Hangsman Tree historic spot sign, I think that falls under historic sign, being exempt, and then 10 would be the Hangman Trees historic spot that was on the back side, which I also think falls under historic sign. Then the other two, I would think 2 and 4 would be under memorial. I wasn't sure what other classification those two would go under. And for memorial, a question for staff: is there a sign limitation or a size limit or any on a memorial plaque or a memorial, in this case, a mural? That'd be great.
Murals are exempt from the sign ordinance.
Right. Correct.
And so if it covered an entire side of the building, it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter. Okay.
So we could perhaps, go ahead, Commissioner Zuba.
In regards to the hanging mannequin, is that on the list that we have here?
No, it's not.
No, it came up outside of this.
And is that something we're meant to decide this evening?
I plan
Yeah,
to.
staff is asking for your consideration on that this evening. Just the way staff is thinking on it, if you look at the definition in city code, this is just a start discussion.
Good.
Which is in Exhibit 1 of your staff report. If you look down under the definition of the term sign, for the sake of the audience who may not have that language in front of you, I'll read it. It's any device, fixture, placard, or structure that uses any color, form, graphic, illumination, symbol, or writing to advertise, announce the purpose of, or identify the purpose of a person or entity, or to communicate information of any kind to the public. It's a long sentence. From that definition, it is my personal opinion that it clearly is a device, and the device serves the purpose of communicating information. The context of the hangman, the noose, and the gallows convey information to the public. So I'll leave that up to the commission.
What information does it convey? What information does it convey?
What does the hangman?
Yes. What is the public meant to understand from that?
It is conveying the history of the building. That was the Hangman's Tree historic spot, just the same as the historic sign does with text. This does with a structure, a device. Earlier, some of the speakers spoke of the quiche type of sign. Catch.
Quiche is a French egg dish.
The catch ant at Kobe's Kicks Ants Pest Control. Yeah. Well, that's a sign that's conveying the type of business they're in with the spider and the. I just throw that out as another example. Maybe that example is a little more clear than the dummy that's on this building.
If we go out,
Please.
If we go out to Highway 50 and down the street a little bit, we have a sign that says, "Welcome to Placerville, Old Hangtown." And that's not a business, that's a community. I think this dummy, whatever you want to call it, represents the community, not the building. So I respectfully disagree with your comment.
My comment was just to assist with
Microphone, please, Pierre. There you go.
Staff is asking the commission to make that determination.
So
I just
one
brought up some
option-
of the earlier comments to help your discussion, since, to me, at least in my mind, an ant and the spider at a pest control building is a little clearer to this definition than, say, the dummy is on this building.
Part of my reluctance here, though, is the reference to a letter from Mr. Calfee that says it's not a sign. So we have that assertion. I haven't seen the letter. I don't know if you've seen it. So let's put that aside. I'm reluctant to call it a sign just on principle, but we could call it a historic sign, in which case it's exempt. That's one. It could also be considered informational, and an informational sign is exempt. So I would call it a historic informational sign that is exempt. That's probably what I would call it if I had to do anything.
To be pedantic, because I love this stuff.
No, go ahead.
If we do declare this a sign, we don't have any means of measuring its area. Because the area calculation that we have in Exhibit 1...
You could certainly ask the applicant to come back with that information. Absolutely.
Well, no, I'm saying the means we have for computing area, as in Exhibit 1, only computes area in 2 dimensions. And the dummy is a 3-dimensional object.
You could actually compute the surface area. You could
Well-
measure the volume and come up with the surface area, and then go make a quiche. So I mean, I appreciate what you're saying. You're absolutely correct, because I thought about that too. It is a three-dimensional object, and everything else is measured two-dimensionally. And so we have first we have to decide: are we going to accept it as a sign, yes or no? And I'm happy to have the discussion. It's not a sign; it's an artifact and decoration, and something along an attraction along those lines. Or we could say it's a sign and it's exempt for the variety of reasons. We're on solid ground with any of those, as far as I'm concerned.
Can we do these as individual motions, or is this all in?
Oh, no. I think, in fact, I would prefer, particularly in respect to Commissioner Keeney's concern with the lighting, that we deal with I was going to make individual motions for each one of these and get an up or down vote, and then I think we should do the same thing with the signs.
I move that we find that the hangman dummy is not a sign.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. So for the purpose of discussion, make your case, Commissioner.
So this idea of the hangman's dummy, it doesn't have any text on it, so it's not conveying information textually. And we look about what information this may be conveying. How applicable does that have to be to every person that walks by it? Is a door a sign by that definition? Conveys information, conveys that it can be opened. Is a window a sign? Because it conveys information as well. It conveys that there's something inside. Conveyance of information, to me, is something that people will universally understand, provided they speak the language. And a dummy hanging from a building is going to convey a wildly different message in another part of the country than it would here in Placerville. So for that reason, I cannot see this as a sign meant to convey information to the public. I see it as an artifact of our community, which, I mean, be that as it may, I don't think it falls under the definition of a sign.
Okay, well put. Any other comments? I'm going to respectfully speak against that, only because I'm looking at the definitions. And an incidental sign, and I believe this to be a historic incidental sign, is a sign intended primarily for the convenience and direction of the public on the premises, which does not advertise, but is informational only and does not contain any commercial messages. And actually this is, it's communicating the historical component of Placerville. And so I find this to be an incidental historic sign and therefore exempt from the sign regulations. And if there's concurrence on that, then I would vote no on your motion, and or you could withdraw the motion, and I would advance the motion to set the dummy up.
Well, suppose the dummy was someplace else on Main Street, not in front of the ice cream saloon. What would it be?
It would be the same
conveying?
thing, because it would be community. Just as Commissioner Liss, I think he's absolutely correct about that.
It would be what?
It would be community.
Community.
It could be one other element, just no different than a gold nugget, a pickaxe, a gold pen. It's just one of the artifacts. Pierre's going to disagree when I say icons of the age. It's going to be one of the It's going to be one of the artifacts of the age, of that era. And it really is nothing more than history. In fact, the fact that the dummy is there really simply attaches to the historical significance that the tree was there. It's a marker. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's a historic marker.
Right, and it's a marker. The reason the building is called the Hangman's Tree Historic Spot has a state marker outside of it. And part of the attraction is that people come to the ice cream shop because they believe that that's exactly where
Correct.
that took place.
Correct.
So I believe that it is a sign. If you are unable to read, or you're unable to read our language, it is a sign. It conveys that if you were looking for the spot where, supposedly this took place, well, that conveys information. So how
Primarily
is it?
for the convenience and direction of the public on the premises, but is informational only and does not contain any commercial messages.
I don't know that inherently it doesn't contain commercial messages, but it does attract people to that building who then go in, before they went in and had a beer, now they go in and get a scoop of ice cream, as opposed to conveying just information that this took place in Placerville at some point.
Right.
Chairman Friend and board, could I address the board or
Please.
the committee, commission? I think what I'm hearing here, I haven't heard really any of you, I don't think, and I might be wrong, saying that you don't want to exempt the dummy, the hanging dummy. Is there anybody that says they do not want to exempt that?
I don't believe, I think we're in concurrence.
Both definitions, I think, said that you would exempt that. So I think from staff's point of view, whether it's a sign or not a sign, it's exempt, and it doesn't have any effect on how you move forward with the...
I'm having a little trouble hearing, and it's
I'm
exempt
sorry.
on what grounds?
Well, I heard two definitions given up there. Both of them said it would be exempt.
I
Are
don't...
you saying it's not exempt?
Yeah, that I
Okay,
feel that
okay.
it draws people to the business that is located in that building as opposed to the dummy being hung someplace else in town. It draws people to that site, therefore it is an advertisement, just like the ant draws attention to, Kobe ant or pest control.
All right. So I think that's a succinct representation of where we're at with that. I think the best way to resolve that might be through simply a motion on the item.
Actually, we have a motion and second on the table?
Yeah, we do, and so I have to make a determination as to whether or not you want to pursue with a vote on the motion, which you're saying it is not a sign, okay? We can have that vote, or if you want to withdraw the motion and introduce a different motion, I'll leave that up to you, your preference. And anyone could call the question. Thank you for that, Andrew.
Yeah. I will pursue the motion and call the question.
Okay, and the restatement of the motion is that this is not a sign. Okay?
Member Juba. Oh, I'm sorry. Is it, you want me to-
Go ahead. You can do a roll call. That's fine.
No, you run the meeting, Chair.
No, let's do a roll call vote then.
Member Juba. Aye. Member List.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
No.
Chair Friend. Member Saragosa.
Thank you.
No.
Chair Friend.
No. Okay. I think there are enough elements of this that qualify it as a sign, and I will go ahead and introduce a motion that I find the object in question to be an incidental historic sign that is exempt from the sign regulations. That's my motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'd like to know why is it historic?
Because it's clearly referencing a period in Placerville. It's what gave Placerville the name Old Hangtown. There's a tremendous amount of history that goes behind Placerville being Old Hangtown, and the tree being there where the actions were taken.
Yeah, I think under the interior, for the historical standards, over the preponderance of time, that has come to be part of the establishment, and so under that definition, it would be historical.
The sign itself is historical.
Correct, and the architectural embellishment of the dummy as well.
Period clothing and all that.
Correct.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Member Juba.
Aye.
Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Aye.
Okay, we put the dummy to rest. I'd like to entertain motions then, and we can possibly. I'm just going to go down the list of signs. Let me find my bigger one because it's getting late. Let's do the. Oh, you want to take care of those other items in the staff report first? Yes. All right, fine. So I'd entertain. We could probably do this by consensus. Is there support? Do we need a motion on it? Probably need a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the exterior lighting plan and mechanical equipment and the awning at 305 Main Street as prepared in the staff report on pages 2 and 3.
I second.
The chair would ask if there's a possibility of a friendly amendment to that motion.
Absolutely.
That with regards to the exterior lighting plan, that the applicant will submit additional details of the 2 lights that were not included in this package to staff, for staff's review and approval.
Yes.
Will the second on the motion accept that? Okay, a motion and a second with amendments, discussion. Call the question, please.
Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Aye.
Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member Juba.
Aye.
Terrific. Then all we have left is to go down the list of the signs here, starting with number 1.
I was jotting down, I'm sorry.
We're not going to do individual motions on these. I think what I'd like to do is wrap it all up into one motion. Well, maybe we can't do it that way. Let me start with, let's take number 1 as a hanging sign.
The five that staff brought forward that I think might be the easiest for the commission to consider are on the screen right now, if that helps you. And I have them individually too, if you want to look at 1,
I feel like I'm at the eye doctor.
5, that's 7, 8, and 10.
Which
10,
would be the ice
or
cream.
excuse me,
We don't
9.
see it, but
Yeah, it's in the upper portion of the.
oh, there
of
it
the
is.
screen.
Oh, I see it. There's the ice cream cone. All right. And so these are all qualified as just a sign, right? Just advertising. Is there a special category of sign?
Staff is seeking your approval as part of the master sign plan for these signs.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
We have 4 that are undetermined.
Correct.
We'll deal with those separately.
Yeah.
So with regards to these,
I would like to discuss sign number 9. We'll have that after the motion.
can we get a motion and we can have a discussion?
I make a motion that we accept as outlined sign numbers 1, 5, 7, 8, and 10.
I thought it was 9.
Not 9.
9.
9?
The ice cream board.
9, excuse me.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion?
My concern with this is sign number 9. As it was presented in the applicant's package, it's no longer, does not meet the ordinance as a projecting sign. The sign now is at street level, and I actually would like to ask the applicant to come back up and explain why the sign was moved down. This picture shows it well above the ledger board, above the awning next door. As it has been most of the summer, and was when I went to your site, it's at street level.
Well, it's non-conforming right. The city said it's not conforming at that level, so this is conforming.
So
to
this is the
sign ordinance.
proposed location.
That's the proposed location, so that it's meets the requirements of.
This is the proposed, so you had it at that location and you moved it down to street level.
Well, we always felt we put it as a temporary sign because we hadn't done any of this yet. So right now it just serves as a temporary sign. This is making it permanent in a location that follows the rules for the signage. You got to be.
And I'm sorry, I didn't understand why you removed it from. So you had it as a conforming, or at least at the height, and you moved it because.
No, it was at right now. You know where it is now.
Yeah, right now, and it's you have a stand board and that, and then there's also the trash collection. So I don't understand why you moved it from one position down to street level.
No, it's going up to the higher level.
What you see
You
now,
will be moving it up there.
Yes.
What they're showing
Okay.
here is what they're proposing. So we're approving it as shown here.
As shown here. Okay, so it never was up at that level?
No.
It's always been down at street level?
Correct.
Okay.
That's the
I
wonders
did
of
not
Photoshop.
understand. In the folio that you presented, right, it shows it here, and then there's a photograph that shows it up here where, you know, but that's photoshopped in.
Well, I think
In this photograph here?
I think Andrew submitted an extra picture. Yeah, that's photoshopped to where.
So
will
it
be
never
located.
was at that height? It's
Never.
always been down at street level?
Correct.
Because when I looked, it looked like there had been some damage to the wall, and I was looking at this picture going, well, why did they move it down?
No.
Okay, thank you for coming back up and
Okay.
answering my
No problem.
concern about that.
Just for the record, on page 2 of the staff report, Director Rivas took that photo to illustrate that these signs they're in violation of the city's temporary sign regulations. So that's where they are today. That's where the cone is today.
That's where they've always been?
Yeah.
They've never been up above?
No, except
Okay,
maybe
I
for
was-
that brief
I
instance
was
when they took the
misled by
photo.
this,
Yeah.
Oh, no,
the fact that
that's-
it exists now, but
Yeah.
it's not at that level.
That's photoshopped.
Okay.
Good job. Huh?
Photoshopped, okay. Very confusing. Thank you for straightening that out.
Additional discussion? There's a motion on the table. Call the question, please. Oh, no, hold on. Commissioner Zoop, no question. Okay, call the question.
Member Juba. Aye. Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Aye.
Member Saragosa.
Aye. Then if I am up to speed, number 2 and number 4, we have to make it as
2, 4, 6, and 10.
2, 4, 6, and 10.
Correct.
And it seems to me that 2 and 4 I would find in the same category. There was a term that somebody threw out, a reference mural?
Memorial.
Memorial, thank you. So I would find those to be memorials.
Put it in a form of a motion.
Yeah, and I'm giving some of the language to do that.
I would move that we approve signs 2 and 4 as.
Yeah, it technically is an approval. It's just a
or it's
determination.
Determination
of the sign. Yeah, thank you.
Signs 2 and 4 as memorial.
Second.
I have a first and a second.
For the record, did Member Juba second the? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Any discussion?
I'm on sign 2, Taylor Drobish Restoration. Is that not the company that's doing the restoration on the building? Or I'm trying to understand why that's a memorial and not a construction sign or some sort of business.
I heard it was a memorial to the activity that was taken to restore this building from all the way from the time that they took the building and all the work they've done. It's not actually now correct me if I'm wrong, if there's an actual company, there's not an actual company. Okay? There's not a company. It is just marking this period of history and the activity.
And I appreciate that now. However, it was not, again, not explained in the applicant's submittal as to, to someone who doesn't understand. It looks like an advertisement. 2013 is, not that old now, but it reads as a construction company sign.
Or restoration is referring to an activity. It was a restoration by Taylor and Drobish. It was a hobby, and a very expensive one.
The number 4, the Herrick brick, of course, that does meet the requirements of a memorial sign. That was something that was there, before the restoration took place. So that I'm very comfortable with, but I'm not sure. I don't. I'm not sure that I agree on placing a memorial when something's in progress. We're still working on it. It's not restored. We're not done with the project. And so it appears that Taylor and Drobish could go out and do other restoration up and down Main Street by advertising. Do you see my point?
I do, and so I don't want to diminish that point at all. And I guess what I'm going to fall back to is my opening remarks, and that is with this particular project and the effort and the expense that's been expended, I'm happy to provide a little bit more latitude. It's completely within our purview. And I understand what you're saying. I think there's different ways that you could frame this and look at it. And my guess is that if either one of them suggested to the other, hey, let's go do another restoration, that somebody'd be on the other end of a noose. just saying. And so I take restoration to be this activity, this project, is referring to a project.
I went back and forth on this when I first looked at it. Same concerns that you had, Member Keene. Because if you go up and down Main Street, it's the only building that has that type of memorial. But as the chairman stated, so much work, so much time and effort has been put into really lovingly restore that building. I do think there's a distinct difference, and I know if we had something like this come back to us again, we'd have the option to look at it on a case-by-case basis. So I'm okay with it. I do share some of those concerns, but I think in this particular case, I'm good with moving it forward as a classification, for lack of a different classification, that it would fall under the same one, memorial.
It is difficult to classify, and I think looking at it right now, if it had an ending date, I think restoration 2013 to whenever the project's completed, that to me is more of a memorial. This is open-ended. It's not historic. It's, what year is this? It's only a few years old. Right. So if it had been there, or if this had been an older project, then I understand the memorial. But since you're arguing that this is a one-off for this project,
I think there's a context here. Mm-hmm. It really is a context.
Okay, I can go with that as a memorial, just like the Herrick brick memorial sign on the other side of the building.
Great, and thank you. Any other discussion? Call the question, please.
Let's see. Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Member Juba.
Aye.
Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member List.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
Aye.
The last motion I think we need to entertain is the classification of number 10 and what's the other one?
6.
And 6 as historic signs.
10 and 6.
I'll make a motion that we determine that signs 6 and 10 are classified as historic signs.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I disagree that number 6 is historic, in that it's approximately 6 years old.
But there was history about
And it meets all the other criteria for a wall sign per our ordinances. So I would argue that it's actually a wall sign and not historic in itself. The permit should, it's a designation of a historic place, but it in itself is not historic.
I'm going to agree with you.
I'm gonna disagree. Once you get the old boy hanging back there, that helps to tell part of the story. So I think it is a historical sign.
I don't argue. It does tell the story, and it is part of the look of that 305 building. But the sign itself is not historic. For a comparison, let's go down Main Street on the Soda Works building. There's an old beer sign that's been up there for a long time. That, I think, easily makes the definition of historic. But this sign itself is not that old, and it's a wall sign. It advertises this location. Again, there's a business that draws people in to, right now it's the ice cream shop.
See, I'm going to go back. It says Hangman's Tree Historic Spot. It's really much more of a marker than it is a business. There's no business historic spot. It's a historic. It's telling the public, here's where the historic spot is.
In our packet here, there's a photograph. Just to make sure we're talking about the same sign from circa 1960 and 1930.
Yeah.
Above of that. That is the same. No. That is not. What are these photographs from the 30s and the 60s?
I think the applicant in their narrative, they describe back in, I think it was 2011 or 2012, they obtained a permit to replace a sign with the same sign text that is there today. So the one that you are seeing in old photos basically says the same thing, but physically it's a different sign. The sign copy is the same.
But it's conveying essentially the same message.
Right.
I am not uncomfortable qualifying it as a historic sign, even though it is newer in its refurbishment.
I would call it a restoration.
Yeah, it's a restoration. Hence, Taylor and Drobish restoration.
It might be construed as a replication.
Okay, still exempt.
Replication.
Call for a question. Any additional discussion? Call the question, please.
Vice Chair Keeney. Member List.
Aye.
Chair Friend.
Aye.
Member Juba.
Aye.
Member Saragosa.
Aye.
Vice Chair Keeney.
I think I'll have to abstain.
You can vote no, it's okay.
I think what's before us is a little confused, and by combining things and voting on the two different signs in the same motion, I'm not comfortable with.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Does that conclude then all the business that we had to deal with for this particular item? Or did I miss something?
No, there are two additional actions.
Okay.
And that's to associate those that are not exempt. Let's see. No, I guess you made them all exempt.
We made them all exempt.
Made them all exempt.
I think we're good.
Yeah, we made
It looks like you are, yes.
every undetermined sign as an exempt.
Are we done then? All right, I'm going to ask for someone to have tremendous confidence in the chair. The chair moves to reconsider item 4.1. I need a second, please.
I'll second.
We neglected to eliminate the previous CUP. Our motion did not include eliminating the prior CUP on the property where the dog training center is going. We need to take that action, do we not?
You can certainly do that right now.
Okay, so I don't have that number in front of me because my notes are.
We'd have to replay the tape, but
No. We're not doing that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may, I clearly recall the Planning Commission referencing all the Roman numerals,
yes.
but you did not specifically read Roman
We
numeral
found it, and we have a motion.
3 or 4 or whatever.
Thank you for that. We have a motion on the floor. We're dealing with CUP 18-2. My motion is to repeal that CUP.
No, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think
No,
we
it's not 18-2.
I thought we
No, that's
covered
the
it.
one we approved.
I think we actually did approve it under the Roman numeral 4 on
Right.
page 6 of item
did?
4.1.
Thank you.
Which was declare CUP 82-07 authorized 1982.
I've been sweating this. The chair withdraws the motion. Can we move on to item 5.1, which is reports of commissioners?
Oh, that's yours.
Hearing none. Reports of staff.
no reports, but just to inform the commission, I did provide the action item application submittal packages and staff reports for the September 4th. I can't believe it's September. It's already September. September 4th meeting. The minutes, of course, from tonight will not be prepared probably for another couple of days. There's a lot of actions taken, so that will come to you forthcoming, as well as the formal agenda. So at this point, that's all staff has today.
One quick question, because I missed it at City Council. What happened with the, it wasn't the appeal, but I guess it automatically went because we had a 2-2 vote on the
Thank you for bringing that up. That will be heard in this room 1 week from today.
Okay.
Which item was that now?
That was the covering the Oak Terrace or
Oak Terrace carport variance.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other business, we're stand adjourned. Thank you for your patience this evening.